Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Casual Sports Podcast. Once again, I'm Alek. Koberna. That's Matt Morrison and Mike Wolfgang over there. Guys, another week coming to an end here on the Casual Sports Podcast. It's been another great one, full of upsets, up and downs, some emotional games, and some utter blowouts. What's new, right? It's football every week. Hockey's actually been giving us some fantastic games, too. We've had a lot talking in that department. Last night, Matt, you were the only one that came out on top. You picked the Lightning over the Blues. They ended up winning that one. It was a close shootout. And all of us took the Bulls over the Knicks. It was a close one. They closed it out, and Mike's Cowboys took home the win. That's what we'll start out with. Dallas Cowboys defeating New Orleans Saints 27-17, and the streak of only one team having won a football game despite throwing 4 interceptions ended at 1 thanks to the Cleveland Browns because the Cowboys had 4 interceptions forced in this game, and they took home the victory. Taysom Hill had a decent amount of yards. I mean, he had a decent football game despite the interceptions. I mean, if you take those out, he actually didn't look too bad. So, Mike, why don't you take this one away? How are you feeling after your game last night?
It's the same way I always feel about the Cowboys. Like, I'm glad they won. Obviously, they needed a win like this. A win's a win. I'll take anything. I don't care if they won 10-7, 27-17 like they were. They won. But the running game struggled last night. And it partly struggled because they couldn't get much going, and they really didn't go to it that much. I mean, seven carries for Pollard. I know he had that big run, but then there's 13 for Zeke. Zeke didn't look himself last night. I think we all can tell that knee injury was still bothering him. I think it's the sore knee he has. So he didn't seem himself. But so I get not going to the running game, at least to him. But it's been the story the last few games with this team that they kind of get away from running the ball. They get too pass happy. But they got the receivers back last night. That was good to see. They got DeMarcus Lawrence back. Matt, our boy Michael Parsons got his 10th sack of the year. That's pretty good. But,
sweet.
I mean, the defense was fine. I mean, I didn't really expect much from the Saints offense, as we talked about yesterday with Taysom Hill. He's not a natural quarterback. We're not used to seeing him there. Threw in 4 interceptions, like you said, Alek. He didn't play that bad. That's the worst part of his stat line, so it wasn't terrible. But overall, I'm glad they got the win. They needed it. I'll take anything at this point. So I'm glad.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, it really was just your defense really locked down this game because, as you were saying, your offense kind of was having an off night. Pollard did great things for me from my fantasy football team. Thank you very much.
Yep.
And, Taysom Hill, despite those 4 interceptions, if you're a fantasy guy, I think he was still getting up there 28, 30 points with the 100 yards on the ground, 2 passing touchdowns, 264 yards through the air. I mean, if you look at this fantasy-wise for either one of these teams, you probably had a decent night unless you had Ezekiel Elliott. So I think a lot of people came out of this game happy, and I'm sure the New Orleans Saints not too displeased with Taysom Hill's performance. I'm sure his contract, though, they want to get a little bit better, and that's going to come with more reps as he continues to get starts, continues to get opportunities to play here in the National Football League at the starting quarterback position. Matt, what were your thoughts off of Taysom Hill's performance last night or the Cowboys?
I mean, the Cowboys, just letting the dogs out, right, Mike?
Yeah, exactly.
But, I decided to throw that in there. But great defense, great performance by Diggs. That guy is easily almost a shoo-in for, rookie defensive player of the year. This kid is a gem, okay? And he's had some up and down games, yes, but he came back for them and produced time and time again. So great performance by him. And I mean, with Taysom Hill on the Saints offense, yes, 4 interceptions, but I mean, like we were saying yesterday and even a couple seconds ago, this guy is not a traditional starting quarterback. So he did okay for coming in and just being the next guy up. So
I mean, yeah, Matt,
that's all I can say about that, really.
19 of 41. I know he had the 4 interceptions, but 19 of 41 for 206, 64 yards or passing yards, and he mixed in the running game at 101 yards.
He had 2 touchdowns too. So,
I mean, he did his part in a way. Like I said, this Saints offense doesn't have much work to work with, anyways. In terms of the passing game, running game, they got some guys started doing that. Mark Ingram.
I mean, he got it down. He got it going on the ground too. I mean, 11 carries, 101 yards rushing. I mean, that's pretty insane. So
Well, I think one thing, a big takeaway from this game has to be the New Orleans Saints defense, right? I mean, all the turnovers going one way. You kind of expect off with all those. You don't really have a good quarterback. The fact they hold Dallas Cowboys to just 27 points in this game, they really limited Dak Prescott in it. The ground game really didn't see anything major besides, the big run from CeeDee Lamb, a couple good carries from Pollard. I think you have to give credit, despite the fact the offense wasn't playing well for the Saints, their defense really picked up the slack. And if they continue to get defensive performances like this and improve on offense, limit those turnovers, they're going to be in a lot better spot moving forward. And, a 5-7 season now, they're kind of on the outside looking in. They would need a lot to happen for them to get into a position to potentially claim a wild card spot. But it's not out of the loop, but a 5-game losing streak. They don't really seem to have an offense that can score consistently and often and avoid mistakes. I mean, last time this team won was October 31st against the Buccaneers, and they were on, a 3-game win streak out of that. They had won 3 out of their last 5. And now you look ahead on their schedule, they have some very winnable games. They're going to have the Jets after this weekend's bye, and then they'll have the Buccaneers, the Dolphins, the Panthers, and the Falcons. So a lot of winnable games. And to me, you look at that last 5, a very good chance for them to finish out at least 9-8, 10-7, perhaps, if they can defeat the Buccaneers again. But I think this is a point. Do you think the Saints should try and push it and try and make that postseason run? Or do you think they just need to take this season off if they can't get Jameis Winston back, call it a quits, and see what you can do next year?
I think they need to just accept where they're at right now and just wait for next year, because they weren't playing too bad before the injury of Jameis Winston, and they haven't had Mike Thomas all year. And I told you you mentioned defense, Alek. I told you before this game when I was, thinking how it would go, I thought it would be kind of low scoring because the Saints do have a good defense, and the Cowboys defense is kind of hit or miss. And last night it was pretty good. But if they're going to mix that in next year with their good defense that they have and getting guys back healthy on offense, they'll be okay next year.
This is the Saints team that looks just like that Patriots team last year. Year after that, their main guy is gone, like the Patriots, no Brady. Now Saints, no Drew Brees. I think next year in this draft, they got to go get a guy that's going to be their franchise leader from now on, unless they want to stick with Jameis, I don't know. But in this upcoming draft, I say look for a guy that's next. And, next year, look what the Patriots are doing right now. So
right. You don't have to go out and grab superstars in free agency. You have a chance in, the offseason to actually get something, get strong defensive players. We've seen a lot of teams be able to win off the strength of their defense. And I think that's probably something that the New Orleans Saints should probably go to look at and find a strong defense, get some nice linebackers in there, some good DBs, because they have a strong defensive line. And I think that's one underlooked facet of this team is this is a very strong team. You saw what they did against the Cowboys. They really limited a lot of the run game, despite, Pollard and CeeDee Lamb getting, 2 big runs out of this game. But I think in total, you look at this game for the Saints, and if that defense a little bit stronger and they have any offensive production and avoid the turnover, it's a very winnable game for them. So I think it's definitely a point you have to look at. Saints can win out this season and potentially get into the playoffs despite what their problems on offense.
They have some winnable games coming up too. I know they got to play at Tampa Bay, but they have the Jets next, they have the Dolphins next, and they have the Panthers and Falcons to close out. So it's not out of the question. The only one you could probably chalk up as a loss, but it's not for sure, is Tampa Bay.
Right. So they already beat them on. That was their last win.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a while ago, and the quarterback situation has obviously changed in the last month, and that's probably the one thing you look at. But, Mike, your team right now, the Dallas Cowboys, they're 8-4. They've done a fantastic job this season. But now you kind of feel these last few weeks, right? Something's been slipping up, obviously. 2 losses to the Chiefs and the Raiders, win a 10-point game here against the Saints. Something's felt off with this Cowboys squad in recent weeks. What do you think that is?
Like I talked about, I think it's mainly them kind of getting away from the running game, and we talked about it too with your team too, the Browns, Alek. It's some of these teams get too pass heavy, and their defense is, like I said, it's still a work in progress, but it's a lot better than it was last year. That's why on that side of the ball I feel better. They have some playmakers back, they're getting healthy there. But you look at their schedule coming up, they got Washington twice, then the Giants, Cardinals, and the Eagles to close out. So that's pretty tough to close it out. So in terms of, they're last night they put themselves back in the driver's seat for the division. I know it was looking like some teams are breathing down their back, but it looks to me they got to win at least one against Washington. We know that. Right. They already beat the Giants, so it'd be nice to get another one against them. But you got Philly to close it out, and Obviously, you want to get that to get better seeding in the playoffs, but overall with this team, I think they're going to be fine. But the last few weeks, they have some question marks on offense, and that's what I was talking about with getting away from the running game. Some guys aren't healthy, so once they get everybody healthy, I'll feel better.
All right. Well, to me, the real problem I'm seeing with this Cowboys offense, I think it's their offense is where they've been struggling the most. They just lack consistency. I mean, you guys have probably, arguably at least, the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. I mean, you guys, it feels like watching Ohio State with the amount of talent you have out there on the offensive side.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't seem like they're showing the consistency week to week.
Yeah.
You know, Dak had all the hype coming in once again, you know, contract negotiations have obviously been a huge part of his tenure here with Dallas the last few seasons. Did he get that extension in the offseason?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so he gets the extension, and now you're kind of seeing he's lacking the consistency a little bit that we've seen from him in the past. I mean, I think perhaps maybe the injury is starting to add up for them a little bit. You know, I got no problems with the Cowboys. I ain't trying to take him down, but I feel like perhaps the money going to his head a little bit, the injuries adding up, maybe being a little bit more cautious, going out of the pocket, trying to avoid those injuries and finally make it to the postseason once more. I think the biggest thing that needs to be addressed in this offseason for the Cowboys, it has to be the offensive line, because I feel like everything else seems to work. I mean, you have Dalton Schultz, who's a great tight end, and, you know, some other guys in that spot, but it just doesn't feel like there's the consistency. And I think that comes from a strong offensive line. If you can give Dak Prescott the confidence to stand behind that line and not have to worry about taking lethal hits back there, I think it's going to improve this offense. Obviously, it's going to open up space for Pollard and Zeke to run the football. So what do you think of that? Improving that offensive line, getting that back to what Zeke had when he started out here.
No, I definitely agree. And I was talking to one of my buddies about this too, just a couple of days ago. If you know, to fix things, to make things look better, I guess for next year, yeah, offensive line is where they need to go to in the draft, and possibly secondary helps. But, you know, specifically with the safety position, that's if they can address those things, I'll feel a lot better. And like it's like I don't know how much longer Lyle Collins is going to be on the offensive line, how much some of these older guys are going to be on the offensive line. So they're going to have to address that. And I think they tried to in this past draft, but I didn't feel like these guys were ready to play right away, the guys that they drafted. So if they can address that early in the draft next year, they should put themselves in good shape. But yeah, that's definitely what I was kind of pointing to.
All right. Well, breaking news here for YSN Live. Power Hour has been canceled today. Casual Sports Podcast, though, we got an extra hour going on. We're extended until 4 p.m. That's why we're going a little bit more in depth here into the Cowboys.
Sweet.
We got some extra time to work with. DJ Yoakley, the big man, the boss, going to be joining us here on Casual Sports Podcast at 3 p.m. to talk about the Ursuline State Championship game this morning. So we're going to be talking to that one around the 2-hour mark or start of the second hour here on the Casual Sports Podcast. So make sure to stay tuned. Grab your popcorn. We got a long one coming in today. Oh, actually, we got DJ Yoakley in here right now.
Hey.
What's going on, DJ?
Hi, guys. How are you?
What's up?
We're
good,
doing pretty
good.
fantastic here. Why don't you talk here a little bit about this game from Ursuline? Fortunately, they come out with the loss. It was a tight one. They had a big lead going into halftime. Can't hold on to it second half. What happened down there?
Yeah, I mean the offense was they were hot for the entire first half or whatnot, and then they came out, you know, especially towards the end of the second quarter. They got the touchdown. Should have probably had another opportunity with the football with a turnover. What should have been a turnover. They went to instant replay. It turned out to be a pass, an incomplete pass. And then you go into halftime 21-7. Ursuline comes out, gets the football, and goes down and scores. And what's great about the whole thing, boys, was you felt like it was done. You felt like it was over. And I think that when you look at we as in, you know, fans, coaches, players, we all kind of rested on that 28-7 lead, and rightfully so, right? You sit there, you're up 3 scores, but Massey didn't. You know, they kept chipping away and were able to come back and ultimately win the game 29-28. So say coulda, woulda, shoulda.
DJ, I think we got you cutting out here a little bit. A little bit of freezing up from the boss right now as he's giving his recap of this Ursuline State Championship game. They do not come away with the win. They are the state runners-up this season, but congratulations to them on just a fantastic season. As we were waiting for DJ's connection to reconnect, he is in a vehicle, so, driving through areas, connections can come in and out. So when he gets back in here, we'll make sure that he's getting his part added to this big matchup. But I mean, this was a huge opportunity this morning for Ursuline. I mean, I believe OB was down on the call with DJ as well. Both these squads have had just such a huge history of making some big runs. Obviously, Ursuline representing the Youngstown area. They got Youngstown across the jersey. Obviously, huge hometown favorites here. They can't pull off the win, and it's a real shame. They were having a great season. They pulled off some huge upsets here in the playoffs. I believe they really were quite the underdog there in those last 3 or 4 games, and just congratulations to them and what they were able to accomplish this season. Obviously, that first half, right? It's been a fantastic stretch of games here for Ursuline down this stretch.
To get back to where they were, I mean, they haven't been in the state championship in 10 plus years, something like that. So to get back on this long run, like you said, they were underdogs. They pulled off some games that were like, wow, they won again. Like, this is awesome. I was behind them. I was listening to this game this morning, and I was like, hey, all right, sweet. Next thing you know, I'm like, my dad's texting me. He's like, hey, they lost. I'm like, what?
Right.
No, they were up 27. No, they didn't lose. Dad, what are you checking here? I don't know what news source you're checking, but I didn't believe it. And then I went and checked. I'm like, oh, no. What happened?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think just about everyone was looking at that halftime lead, and obviously, as DJ was saying, they jumped right back out 28-7 coming out in that third quarter, and they started resting. And one thing, when you get down to the state championship time and you get there, you can never take that step off because you're going up, obviously, against some of the best talents in the entire state of Ohio. And if you show any signs of weakness, they're going to jump on it. And that's just what happened. Ursuline jumped on every weakness they could in that first half, and they got out to their big lead. But I'm going to be so interested to see what these post-game talks, because I know OB does some great interviews with the coaches. He's really created a great bond between Ursuline and this YSN here. And I'm sure he's going to get some great talking points after this one, and should be a great story here on ysnlive.com. But I'm really interested to see, what these coaches have to say, what any of the players have to say about this game, because frankly, this was a fantastic run for them down the season. I know it's not the outcome they wanted, but I think you just have to go and say, congratulations to them. It's been a long time making for them, as we keep alluding to, and they finally get back here. They have 4 state championships in their history. They were trying to get to number 5. They just come up short, but I'm sure it's heartbreaking, and they're going to, come back next year. I hope they come back hungry.
And you know what? This really gives Youngstown hope. Like, hey, we were here this year, and we're going to come back next year.
Can we just talk about the Valley and the greatness of sports we have going on right now? All that you can watch here on ysnlive.com, majority of which for free as well. Obviously, you got the state championship today. That was free. You have to go back. Baseball season, Warren JFK, I was on the call there. They were in a state championship. We had 3 or 4 teams going down here into the Final Four of football here this season. Then obviously you go back last year, JFK was there, Springfield was there, South Range I think was in the Elite 8 or Final Four last season as well. So much great talent you have coming out, and you can't forget to mention Canfield baseball. They had a perfect season going on, and they finally get upset come postseason last year in basketball. I don't remember who we had going to the state championship or getting down there in the late playoffs, but I know there were some great teams, and now they're all being provided to you guys here on ysnlive.com. So fantastic coverage. I'll boast us up a little bit here, but fantastic coverage from us, getting the best teams in the state of Ohio here on coverage. And once again, we want to thank the fans for being able to tune in and support us. And thank you to the advertisers for making this possible as well. Because without both of those, we don't have this. The broadcasts aren't out there. And these talented young kids don't get to show off their talents to the world, because you know what? High school football, unless most of the time you're in a big name city, you're not getting that big coverage. Well, you can get that here in Youngstown, as DJ joining back into the broadcast here. Hopefully he can get back in, but just the great level of talent. I mean, I was down, just right up here north of Ursuline in Liberty last night calling basketball game, and the athleticism and talent coming out of that Liberty girls basketball team was insane. And I was calling Boardman basketball last year, and they have some absolute great talents. And I mean, you look at the football prospects that are coming out of Youngstown now. We are in one of the most loaded areas in the state of Ohio, and I don't think it's really being shown off enough to the rest of the world, because the rest of Ohio, they need to start paying attention to this Youngstown area. They are coming in hot. It's hot pursuit. And, as Jaeger Davis here, Ursuline football, they did, man. They fought hard all season long. And, you just have to give credit to getting to the state championship. Whether you win or lose, obviously you want the banner, you want that championship glory. But at the same time, man, you did what every single kid dreams of, making it there, right? You got all the way to a state title game. You did it. You reached the mountaintop. They couldn't quite, grab hold of that stone on top, take the sword out, and claim themselves as the king of the world. But they got there, right? They fought through every piece of adversity, whether it was COVID last year, COVID's protocols in the offseason, everything to make it here. They fought and they, clawed their way into this. And I think you just have to give credit to what this team has accomplished over this past year.
And Alek, like you said, obviously you want to win it, but people don't realize how hard it is to get there in high school football. Like, couple years, like when first year I graduated, or was my first year in college, Gerard made the state championship. They lost, but that's the first time they ever got there. It's so hard to get there. And I like what you guys keep bringing up about the football in this area. It's getting better every year, and it's been good in the past, but it's getting back to where it should be. And what do we talk about, especially in this area? But what do we talk about around the country, high school sports wise? It's Ohio, Texas, California, states like that are good in high school football. So we're part of that.
PA is right back behind them too. But yeah, Mike, to your point there with the Ohio football, I think it's one of the most underrated areas of development. Obviously, your Penn State team getting Drew Allar out of Medina this next season. I mean, that's just an hour and 20 minutes away, basically, from this Youngstown area. The farther east you go, between PA and Akron, you are finding some major talents that aren't necessarily getting the big publicity that you get in a city like Columbus, Cincinnati, or Cleveland. But this Akron, Canton, Mahoning Valley region, the level of competition has really been shining through, I think, in these last 3-4 seasons. And you're finally seeing it culminating in some serious state title runs. Obviously, this area has been dominated by Cardinal Mooney really the last 60 years. They have been the forefront of athleticism here in the Mahoning Valley, and now you're seeing all these other schools following suit. I mean, Mooney, obviously one of the highest rated programs for football, at least, of all time. I've been in their gym. I'm calling their boys and girls teams this season. I got their game tonight for girls basketball against Urban Scholars. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But you see that team football program kind of maybe on the downfall, but their basketball programs were both in the playoffs last season. You go in that gym, there's not a spot of that wall that isn't covered in banners. And now I think you're seeing the rest of the city coming along with that proud tradition of great sports out of the area. And they're building on to what the Mahoning Valley has always done and shown excellence. And now you're even getting a team like Warren JFK, who is a very small school, being able to perform at the state level, winning a state championship in baseball, getting their last season in football, coming just short this season in football again. I mean, you're getting such high levels of talent right now. It's really great to see.
It's awesome to see, and it's like, most of the stuff you hear about, especially high school sports, but around YSU, the great people that came out in past years. Well, now it's good to see that at least you have a sense of feeling or direction that, hey, that stuff might continue to, athletes from high school around this area or athletes from YSU, hopefully pretty soon, that do good, get to better heights in the sports level. So I hope that gets back to that.
Well, one thing I really hope that comes out of all this great talent, YSU recruits and dominates their area. I mean, you see it when smaller teams are at their best. Cincinnati for number one as group of 5 team now potentially in a college football playoff after this weekend. What did they do that made them so powerful? They dominated recruiting in their region. They stole big recruits out of Cincinnati from Ohio State. They went up to Toledo. They took recruits out of there, and they dominated their region. For Youngstown State to reach the pinnacle of sports again in the FCS, what they have to do now is keep these best recruits here in Youngstown. You saw them do that with potentially the best quarterback we have in the Valley in Bo Brungard. I wish they could keep the Hubbard running back nearby, but we don't know if that's going to be the case. But there's a lot of other talented backs. And I think another big thing, get some wide receivers from this area. We have some very talented boys. Keep these linemen in place. Get these DBs back. There's so much talent in the Valley. Youngstown State, it's time to start capitalizing on not just, football, but also basketball. Matt, your group up in Badger, they are throwing up alley-oops in high school. It's a very athletic group.
Hopefully we'll see more of that tonight.
YSU needs to get the grit out of this, get the grit from this city, and keep them in the city because we have so much talent coming around now.
And especially coming from Badger, the kids I played with, and they have came to YSU before but ended up going elsewhere. I'm like, guys, go try out for this YSU team, please. We play pickup games here, right at the rec center at YSU, guys I grew up with, and they'd be going up playing like they did this, for years. And they have been, but like they're playing up. I mean, these pickup games could get serious. Like there's guys dunking, and they have insane talent, and these guys are shooting, and these are 6-foot guys dunking.
Right,
like, they have hops.
Right, so, and as Jaeger Davis pointing to here, Bo Brungard coming in, and Ethan Dominguez from South Range. I don't know if he's committed 100% yet, but I know he's definitely rumored to be coming here to YSU, and that's what we're talking about, getting those big talents to come home, stay in the city, and obviously the Brungard family has a big tradition here of Youngstown State. It's
his dad,
a big reason of those championships that YSU has hanging at the football stadium, and we want to continue that tradition here in Youngstown. YSN loves to have their partnership here with YSU and some of the sports, and obviously picking up more as we go along and continue to build that relationship. And that only gets better when we can have these YSU talents coming straight from the Valley that YSN has been covering for, by the time everything will probably come working together, 5, 6, 7 years down the line. And YSN will have covered these kids all the way from really their freshman year until their senior year, and then eventually potentially into college here at YSU. So that relationship from YSN to the kids to YSU, it's going to create this Mahoning Valley family of sports. And it's just going to bolster the relationships built between the schools, these athletes, and continue the strong tradition of athletics here at Youngstown State University and in the whole Valley.
And Alek, what do we have been talking about? At least since I've been in at YSU, what have we been talking about? Football games. There's no game day atmosphere. Nobody goes. Wow. Well, let's get people that are from here. Right. Like you said, that you guys cover, and then they have success at YSU. That's going to put butts in the seats.
Right.
And if you start winning, that's going to come along with it.
Fans here is grab the local people, and what do? Get their kids on the football team and play well. I mean, that's the best way to get people into the stands. Bring them.
Again, you're still going to have to. You're still going to have to recruit outside the area and look for transfers and stuff. We all understand that, but focus on trying. And again, not all these people are going to stay here, but focus on trying to get the key ones to stay here, because that's gonna get a lot of excitement around the program that we haven't, at least since I haven't had since I've been in college. There was, they had that run before I was in high school, but there hasn't been anything since.
Right.
And I mean, Alek, we haven't gone to many YSU games, but Bo Brungard suiting up now. It's like, hey, I want to go see. We called him. Let's go watch him.
Yeah, I mean, it creates that moment. You get that connection, like, hey, I saw this guy in high school. I want to see if he could perform the same way. I mean, you look at him, he nearly made it to a state championship, and every year he was quarterback for Springfield. So clearly he's bringing in a high-level talent. Dylan Dominguez was one of the best running backs in the Valley over this last, 3 seasons as well. And his commitment potentially here to YSU is going to be huge, and especially Youngstown State, who's shown they love to run the football. It's where they're built around. Bringing in a high-level talent like him is going to keep improving on that. And obviously, Anthony Dema, if YSU can find a way to get him on board. Remember, he was 4th in the state in total touchdowns, total yards, and rushing touchdowns. He is an extremely high-level talent out of Garfield. Obviously, a little bit closer to Akron, depending on where he decides to go. Last time we talked, he really didn't have many D1 offers. If anyone from YSU is listening here, just go take a look, man. This guy's got a serious high level of talent, and he can be worked into any style of offense. You saw it. He got thrown in a Pop Warner-esque offense from the 1940s, and he was the fourth best, total touchdown guy in the state. So
just imagine
so much talent coming around the Valley.
Just imagine the YSU backfield with Brungard, Dema, and Dominguez back there. Just imagine that.
And that's not discrediting anybody on the team right now because
was it
McLaughlin this past season? Was insane. I mean, he came out of nowhere and really started showing out. But you've seen a lot of with YSU. The biggest problem really seems to be the consistency of a quarterback. We really haven't had that consistent quarterback that can win big games and play when he's needed. And I think that comes from having a lack of chemistry between the entire team, not having a consistent coaching staff from season to season. And if they can solidify that, grab the recruits around the Valley who, every team around here has virtually played one another at some point. It's a small, close-knit region, and, you got an hour drive and you're going through 20 different high schools, basically. So if you start bringing in these groups from around the Valley and putting them together, you're going to find there's a lot of chemistry you didn't know you have. And I think that's a big thing for YSU right now, is building a chemistry, building a team atmosphere to make this look like a place people want to come to.
And the Grit U theme, let's actually stick to that. Like you said, the Grit U, the Youngstown area. Well, let's actually bring that in and see where that goes. Because it's one
bring the Grit back to Youngstown.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing anybody, but it's one thing to talk about it. But let's actually have it happen, and let's actually bring that in and have it on the field instead of just putting on T-shirts. Let's make it a real thing here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they want to bring out the sledgehammer and the hard hat, but you see what happens on the field. You can't get a winning season. So, is there really any grit in a 3-win season?
No.
The only grit is from the fans that decide to show up for the final home game. That's the real grit.
And that's the other thing too.
That's not a dig at the players. That's a dig at the coaching.
It's a dig at a lot of people, and you guys know this. You guys were at the one game I tailgated in the past. Mainly when I tailgate with my family or if any friends come, we usually do go for at least a half. But most of the people that tailgate around us, they just go to tailgate and don't even go to the game. That's got to change. That has to change.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is the team needs to give people the reason to show up. They're not just going to show up. I mean, this is Youngstown. We got crappy weather for 9 months out of the year. You get maybe 1 or 2 games at the beginning of the season to show everybody what you're made of. And if you don't play fantastic in those first 2 games or give people a reason to come back once the weather gets bad, they're not going to show up. And that even goes for the student section. I mean, we're on campus. We get free tickets. And I was like, you know what? I think I'd rather not watch them because it's going to be awful. And you're going to leave by the end of the first quarter because at least this past season, they were sticking it in there till the second half, but they still couldn't pull it out. But you just don't see a reason to stay, a reason to show up. And if you bring in this talent from the Valley and give people a reason to stick around, whether it's to see their kids perform or to see this team actually play the way we know they should be, then you're going to find out why this Valley is going to fill up the Ice Castle a way it hasn't seen since the 90s. I mean, this stadium is the biggest in the FCS, and it hasn't been full since really the 90s. And you give it to that, 1 or 2 seasons they had back there, 2015, 16, some great seasons in there from Pelini, had a good run. But even then, they weren't seeing numbers that were even close to the 90s. It's time to load this stadium back up, bring in the talent from around the Valley, keep them in there. And you know what? If you can't win with the guys in your Valley, at least you're bringing in people from this area you want to see. I mean, frankly, I don't know how much I would care about getting a 3-star commit from someone out of Toledo, but you know what? I'd pay decent money to see a 3-star talent out of Youngstown play in my hometown. That's what I'm going with here is sometimes it doesn't matter if you can win because people want to see people they know. And if you're bringing in 2 people with the same talent and one can be from your hometown and one can be from 3 states away, which one do you think people are going to want to see more? The one that lives in their hometown and is from their hometown. That one they can go, hey, I have that much of a connection with, and I want to see that.
And the thing that I thought of too, this is minor stuff, but I know since we're on the topic of YSU, I just thought of this. I talked about the tailgating stuff. It seems like a lot of people do tailgate, but they don't go to the games, like I said.
Right.
Like we got a great tailgating crowd. I know they
there.
stink lately, but if you fix this and you bring in some of these, better recruits and some from around this area and get some, out of state better, let's make the game day atmosphere a little better. Let's make the stadium more appealing to us as students, to anybody that's going to watch the games. Let's make it like fun to be there, and let's make it like an event to be there. That's what I kind of noticed.
Has to fall into YSU, the campus itself. I mean,
yeah.
How do we create this game day atmosphere? How can you feel that, make this more inclusive, like you get at places, like Ohio State, like Penn State, heck, even North Dakota State. I mean, you go up there and you're afraid to go into the Fargo Dome. That is an intense atmosphere. Frankly, Youngstown State doesn't have that kind of atmosphere, that excitement around the stadium. There's something, and I'm not sure what it is, but Youngstown State needs to find a better way to build up this campus on Saturdays to make this feel like the place to be and get everybody to want to go into this stadium.
That's my point. That's exactly what I mean. And it can't, obviously, Alek, everything we're saying right now relates back to what they're doing on the field. You start winning, people are going to come. That's
right. You start winning, people come. Yeah. School gets more money. That gets right back into the football program since they earned the money, and obviously it's going to help other sports too. If football does well, it just brings more money into the athletics and for the school, because everybody knows that most of the biggest money makers of a college campus comes from football. They can get a ton of money out of the football program, and that's going to help not just the school, but it's eventually going to help the entire region of this Mahoning Valley that encircles YSU. So the better they play, the better everything's going to go.
Yep.
Well, let's move on now. Power Hour officially canceled for today. They will be back on next week, and I'm sure a bunch of other Ursuline talk will happen on that one on Monday. But Casual Sports Podcast extended till 4 p.m., so stick around. We're not going anywhere. Let's go into some high school basketball. Last night, I saw perhaps the best basketball team I have ever seen take the floor, and that was this Liberty girls basketball team. Don't laugh when I say a girls basketball team was the best I've ever seen, because I saw this unit and they won hands down in the first quarter. It was off to the races immediately. They come out and Sienna Smith hits a wing three from way downtown, nothing but net, and you just have this feeling immediately. She puts this thing in the net, and I just went, oh dear, this is a team. I was looking at stats before the game. First game they win, they put up 64 points against reserve. They win by just 6 points in that. Struthers, they then go up by nearly 30 points. They put up 73 on the board. And I went, man, I saw this Springfield squad against Crestview. They were dominant defensively. Their shooting was great. And Liberty comes in, hits a three to start, and I just went, oh man, this team's got some talent. And then immediately, the ball gets thrown in from Springfield, double team coming in a full court press, steal the ball, fancy bounce pass assist, layup, it's in 5-0. Then they do it again, it's 7-0. Then Springfield finally gets it across, half court, ball gets stolen back the other way. Next thing you know, Liberty's up 21-7, and this game's a runaway after one quarter. Springfield made a nice comeback in part of this in that second quarter, but then second half, Liberty went off once again, and they finished this game winning at 72-41. This team is now averaging nearly 70 points per game through the first three of the season, and this isn't just coming from underneath. They don't have one superstar who's taking over. They have like 4 or 5 that can take over a game at any time, whether it's Kylie Thomas, Sienna Smith, Demi Watson, Aaliyah Foster. I mean, there are so many girls on this roster that were just absolutely lighting it up from everywhere. Every time they touched the ball, you were just waiting in excitement for something to happen, because they're playing with such speed, such intensity, and they're making their shots. This is a team that, there's so many times you see a team come in and you're like, oh, they're just throwing up balls, and they just keep ricocheting around. They won't fall in. That's not what you were seeing with Liberty. Every time they were putting up a good shot, for the most part, it was falling. This looked like watching the Golden State Warriors, picking apart anybody they wanted, or really it made it look like when they were picking apart Cleveland in the NBA Finals. This was one of the best performances I've ever seen. If they continue to play like this, I know I said it to you guys last night, I have no problem saying right now, after seeing them once, maybe it's an overreaction, maybe it's not, this team can make a state title run. That's how talented they were.
Yeah, you said that last night. I'm like, wow, really?
Yeah, and that's not something you just throw out there.
Right? They didn't have much of a turnout for the crowd. I mean, the JV squad had more people show up, but this team came out Oh my God, there's a reason no one was in the stands because it was done by the first quarter. I mean, they just went off and they had a 20-point lead. They never got rid of it. They held on to it and then decided to put the pedal down and, win by 31.
They keep dominating like that too if they fill up that gym. Because I mean, I went to Jordan Liberty played a lot. That place gets loud when it's filled up.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was there varsity game right before, getting ready, setting things up, and it was deafening. I had to put my headphones on so I could even set up and make sure my audio was good. It was a deafening sound in there, and it was maybe only a fourth of the way full. If Liberty can fill this thing up and continue to play the way they are, that is going to be perhaps the most electrifying atmosphere in Youngstown for this season. They have such a young roster from last season. They had, I think, one person graduate. Everybody else returned. I mean, they have 3 girls who averaged double digits last year, and I'm just waiting for big things this season. They showed it already early on, and it looks like this could be a season to remember for Liberty.
And it's going to be big things because regardless if it's their men's team or their women's team, like I said, that place is a big gym. You saw it last night. I saw you said that in the group chat. It's going to be tough for people to come in there and try to win, especially when they play. But when it's an environment like that and that place is rocking, look out.
I mean, it felt like walking into, a smaller college atmosphere. They obviously don't have the amount of stands that you see at college, but they got 40-foot ceilings up there and, or actually probably higher than that, but like 40, 50-foot, 2-story building here for this basketball arena. And you felt this atmosphere that it's rare to find an atmosphere that electric when you walk into that you just feel, oh, now this is a team environment.
Yeah, and Liberty cares about basketball. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'm very excited to call the boys basketball squad too because they got a lot of young members on that squad that can make a big run. Neither squad had a great season last year, but I got a strong feeling that's going to change this time around.
Matt, you got anything?
I mean, yeah, I like this high school environment. I do. I can't wait to call that game I have tonight. But, I've seen some girls' teams that have been good. That Brookfield girls' team, you saw them. Alek,
they had a close one last night.
Yeah. And, the way you talk about this, the spring, what was it? Liberty team, it's like, wow. Like, because you thought Brookfield was pretty good. Now
right. I saw that Brookfield team like, oh, wow, that's a talented squad there. Then I saw Liberty and I just went, oh, man, I cannot wait for this matchup. And you don't have to wait too long for these two teams to meet up here. The Lady Leopards do take on the Lady Warriors December 13th in Liberty. I can't wait to be on the call for that one. That should be electrifying. If both teams continue to shoot the lights out in the early part of this season, that game really just, 10 days away. It could be the biggest early season matchup in lady basketball here in the Valley.
Did they go to Brookfield at all?
I believe so. They go at Brookfield. That one won't come until January 20th. So December 13th, January 20th, 2 potential biggest matchups of the season for the MVAC.
Sweet.
Yep. This is going to be a season to remember for a lot of folks around the Valley. We have a ton of talent coming through, and that's really without me seeing any of the other teams I've covered. I'm going to be covering this season. I have not seen either one of the Mooney team. I have not seen the Leopards boys squad yet, but I cannot wait to get my hands on some of this action here in the Valley because we got some great basketball coming up here on YSN.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we do.
You had great football. Now you're moving over to great basketball.
Oh, right. We're going right into it, Matt. You and I got the cover of Brookfield and Valley Christian, who both had fantastic regular seasons. And, I think both teams are really going hot right into basketball season as well. So,
yeah.
Good transition.
Yep. Well, let's get out of high school. Actually, no, we're not getting out of high school basketball just yet because I've got a game tonight. Matt, you have one as well, don't you?
I do too.
All right, why don't you get yours off first here?
All right. This is Badger Braves boys basketball going up against Campbell. And this Memorial team is good. They just beat Hubbard 81-45. So, they're Badgers going to have their hands full tonight. They're going to get You got to get Carter Burnett going. Carter Burnett, this is the dude. I was sending these videos. This guy was going up and getting alley hoops. This guy's 6'5". He's a senior. Then you got Jeff Logan, who's 6'6", also a senior. You got Carter's younger brother, Cole, who's 6'6". These guys they play great defense. They're just smacking the ball out of these other players. At least their last opponent's hands. Like their defense was tight. And that's what they're going to have to do to hold a Memorial team down, because 81 points, they can score. This is going to be a very tight defensive game here. And hopefully we see some shooting here. Jack Lindeck can get off and shoot some huge 3-pointers from deep out, 30-footers sometimes. So it's going to have to come down to that.
Matt, is this game in Camel or in Badger?
This game is in Badger.
I was going to say, but that's Camel's another place. Camel's another place too if they're playing good. They got a good setup there too. They have it actually looks like a real arena. But yeah, this Camel team's tough. I mean, I told you the other day when you were talking about this game, they've been better in basketball and they haven't been better in football lately the last few years. But yeah, they're a pretty strong team, Matt, and you just ran through it, so it should be a good one.
Should be pretty good.
Yeah, and, for me tonight, I'm going to have Cardinal Mooney, the boys basketball team, getting their home opener tonight against the now 0-2 Academy for Urban Scholars. Not a great start to the season for them. They've allowed 70-plus points in both games, averaging about 45, 46 points per game. So they've been severely outscored early on, and this should be a fantastic home opener. I hope the crowd comes out for Mooney. Everyone gets to see the other half of the rival in the state championship in football. Now the other side of the Holy War down, getting their home opener for boys basketball. Should be an epic atmosphere, I'm hoping, early on for this team. They bring in a lot of talent from last year. I'm hoping they can start things off with a win, get this season on a roll here from home. They do have some tough games coming up on the schedule, but hey, they went 17-5 last season. They're going to be returning a decent bit of talent. And Zach Herb, he didn't have much of a role this last season, but he's one of those baseball talents that you really have to look out for come basketball season, because they can bring in a lot of firepower as well. They do lose a lot of seniors, including their two top scorers in Pelini and Fire. But, hopefully back this season, Herb rather. Their their second leading scorer actually will be in his senior year. So they're going to have to rely on him to get the majority of points until they can find that rhythm. But, it should be a great season for Mooney, and we're looking forward to this one here tonight.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. Well, let's transfer out of high school basketball and get into the National Basketball Association here. Los Angeles Clippers tonight taking on the Los Angeles Lakers, obviously in Staples Center. This one, 10 p.m. Lakers, a 1.5-point favorite. LeBron James set to return tonight. Battle of Los Angeles once again. Still no Kawhi Leonard, obviously dealing with offseason surgery issues. And we're getting LeBron back. AD is questionable. Avery Bradley is questionable. Trevor Ariza is questionable for the Lakers. A lot of players out, yet they still remain the favorite here. These two teams, they're very neck and neck when it terms of their offensive ratings, but defense is where they get separated. Clippers defense is quite a decent bit better. They're fourth in the NBA in defensive rating. Los Angeles Lakers were a little behind middle of the road.
Yeah, and I think for the Lakers tonight, I know they're getting some guys back. They have been too healthy this year, but I think this, you don't have Kawhi on the other side for the Clippers, so the Lakers have to win this game. They're the home team tonight. Actually, both teams are home, but the 2-point favorites, and I think the Lakers, they need to get back on track here. I know, like I said, I know they've had injuries, had their star players out, but they need to get back on track here. And I think tonight this is one for them to do it. And I don't mean to transition to another game here, but I'm just talking about teams in their conference. I was listening to First Take this morning, and we had the Suns and Warriors again tonight. Those two teams seem to be the two teams that we're focusing on in the Western Conference. So if the Lakers want to get back to that conversation being that championship type of team like the Suns and Warriors seem what they are right now, they have to start turning things around. And I think tonight, I mentioned without Kawhi, they need to win this game big tonight.
Right. But, I think you have to look at least Clippers. They've been without Kawhi all season. This isn't really a Kawhi-led team anymore. And, right, they're 500. They have one of the best defensive rating teams in the NBA right now. And when you go to the Lakers, as you were saying there, is they're trying to make that championship run once again. This might be the best set of games here in this next 6-7 games to be able to do that. I mean, they're going to have a Celtics team that has been struggling. Obviously, a Grizzlies team that just came off a huge win last night.
Without John Morant.
Without John Morant setting a record for the largest margin of victory in NBA history. That'll be a tough one, but I think the Lakers probably are going to play a little bit better than the Thunder, but they'll get the Thunder after that. They're going to have the Magic coming up, the Mavericks, the Timberwolves, and the Bulls. They'll get the Suns, the Spurs, the Nets, and they're getting some tougher games, but I think they can find a way to really go above 500 in this next 10 to 12 and get themselves back in a conversation a little bit higher in the rankings once they can get people back healthy. But I think you have to look at this game tonight and say, I think whichever team comes out of this might take the momentum to really control Los Angeles this season. Because as I was saying, a good run coming up here for the Lakers. Clippers have something similar, man. They got the Kings, the Blazers, the Celtics, the Magic before they hit the Suns and the Jazz. Then they'll go back to the Thunder, the Spurs, and the Kings. So both squads have a very good chance of winning these next 8-9 games or getting at least above 500 in those. I don't think anyone's touching the Suns right now. They are, pun intended, flaming hot. But I think this game here for Los Angeles, for the Lakers and the Clippers on both sides, is huge when you look at what they've done so far this season and what they can do. And I think whichever team loses might find themselves in a little bit of a slump coming out of it. I mean, you have a 3-game losing streak for the Clippers going into it, a 2-game win streak for the Lakers coming into this one. So both teams kind of finding themselves early. Neither one's really shocked us, shown us anything impressive. But neither team's disappointed, I think, too much considering all the injuries they're both dealing with.
Matt,
Mike,
you got anything? I broke the game down already. Come on now.
This game. I mean, you pretty much said everything that was running through my mind, Alek. There. So, I mean, they don't have Kawhi Leonard. I mean, so what? So move on, play with the players you have, and go out there and win some ball games. And the Lakers. Same thing with them. I mean, they're an older team, but you put this team together, go out and win games. So
right. I mean, when you put together an older team, Matt, you expect the injuries probably to add up a little bit more than say a younger roster.
We'll get to them.
Right. No, I mean, just the amount of minutes that all these guys have played, whether it's even a younger AD or obviously Grandpa LeBron, who's clearly finding himself perhaps reaching the end of his career. I think it's been speculated the last few seasons. He's had a few down games and the question marks keep popping up. And to me, this is that season. It kind of feels like, this might be that beginning of the end now. It feels like he's on his way down. I mean, what can you expect? The guy's been in the league, this is 20 plus years, nearly 20 years, I believe. So, I mean,
20, it's going to be 20 years.
Nearly, yeah. So, I mean, this guy has obviously been in the league for a while. He has more double-digit scoring games than anybody in NBA history, and it's not even close. I think he has 200 or 300 more than Michael Jordan, and that's consecutive, I believe. So LeBron James has clearly cemented himself as one of the all-time greats, but I think you have to look that potentially this is the beginning of the end for one of the greatest stars in the league. It's sad to see every time, but you know what happened to guys like Dwayne Wade, Dirk, Kobe, Jordan, even, with the stint with the Wizards, and Shaq had his downfall going, spanning years. Dirk had it. It happens to all the best. You hate when it does, but it's a reality of sports.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not looking for them to come out and destroy the Clippers tonight because it's hard to destroy teams, and the Clippers are still. They found ways. They made a run last year without Kawhi. They lose them in the playoffs. They're 500 right now, so they're not going to really blow them out. But like I said, if this seems to me the Lakers' absolute last chance to win a championship. To me, it seems that way. And if like I said, they have teams that the Warriors and Suns right now that they're battling it out for the top of the Western Conference. They're not afraid of the Lakers right now. The Lakers aren't. Nobody's talking about the Lakers right now as them being a real contender. So they want to get back to that. They're going to have to get healthy, and they're going to have to win games like this.
Right. Well, why don't we go ahead and make predictions for a game like this? Let's get right into it here. First predictions of the week. Final predictions of the week, I should say. Lakers versus Clippers tonight, 10 p.m. Lakers are the favorite going into it at 1.5, but not much. To me, I think it's the defense. We always talk about defense winning big games. And you look at defensive ratings here, the Lakers have actually allowed more points against than they have scored points for this season by a differential of about 1.5 points. So to me, their defense has clearly struggled. Their offense has clearly struggled. And the Clippers, they sit just right behind the Lakers in terms of their offense and the scoring points per game. But their defense, obviously, I said earlier, 4th in the NBA. They're allowing just 104 points per game. They sit just behind the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are right above them in the defensive ratings. To me, we always talk about defense winning championships, winning big games, showing up when you need it. We finally saw this Lakers squad play some defense against the Sacramento Kings a couple nights ago, even without LeBron James. And I think that's a big part. LeBron James off on the floor sometimes can be a defensive liability, especially now that he's getting up in age and he's feeling those miles that he's put on his legs. So to me, one thing tonight, I think the youth sits on a little bit of the side of the Clippers. The defense sits on the side of the Clippers. I think offensively, Lakers might be a little bit better, but I think they're dealing with too many problems. I'm taking Los Angeles Clippers in this one, technically on the road, but still in the Staples Center. I got Los Angeles Clippers taking on the win.
I got
Clippers
Clippers
go first,
too. I'll go. I got Clippers too. Defense wins.
So obviously the Lakers are getting LeBron back tonight, and Russell Westbrook has been playing better basketball, and he's kind of had to with LeBron being out. But I want to see, they haven't played too much together, this big three, so much this year. So I'm kind of worried about that coming. Well, LeBron's going to do what he does. We all know that, but how's it going to take away from some of the other guys? Because we know he likes to facilitate and get to the basket and get to the free throw line and stuff like that. But I like this Clippers team. I've liked them going back to the playoffs last year, what they've done so far. And you talk about the defense too, Alek. I got to go with the Clippers as well. I think the Lakers need it a lot more, but I got to go with the Clippers.
Yeah, me too. And, this definitely feels like a game I think the Clippers perhaps need more than the Lakers. And I think that's part of it, right? They're dealing kind of with finding their own identity without their leader in Kawhi. And obviously they still have a ton of other talent, and Paul George needs to show that he is that guy once again. I mean, this is a guy, 3 years ago was in the running for MVP. So he's still one of the elite small forwards in the league. He's got to show up here tonight and prove that against kind of a decimated Lakers squad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some of the guys they have. I mean, LeBron's playing, but it still says game time. They have a bunch of game time decisions. Trevor Reeves has been out. He hasn't really played that much at all, and they're not going to get him back till later this month. So they're still dealing with a lot of injuries, and Kendrick Nunn, too, another guy they brought in. So both teams really dealing with injuries, but I like this Clippers team more than the Lakers right now.
All right, well, moving on here as we look to end our first hour here on the Casual Sports Podcast. Let's move into the NHL tonight. 7:30 New York Rangers, San Jose Sharks. Rangers 1.5-point favorite coming into this. Really, these two teams, they feel kind of similar, but I think the one thing recently with the Rangers, their defense has been stepping up these last 3 games, just allowing, I'm looking at it here, 4 points in the last 4 games, while they've gone on and scored 13 on the other side. So they have been playing fantastic puck here recently, and to me, I think this might be the team to beat right now in the Metropolitan. They seem to be on a really hot win streak, and they're just right there, 3 points behind the Capitals, tied for second in the with the Hurricanes at 31 points. To me, if they continue to find this hot streak that they've had, 8-2 in these last 10, and they're the only team right now in the Metropolitan Division that has won their last game. Every other team is on a 2-game or greater losing streak. I mean, you look at the Islanders, 9 games. The Flyers have lost 7 straight. Devils have lost 2 straight. Blue Jackets have lost 3 straight. Penguins have lost 3 straight. Hurricanes have lost 3 straight. Capitals have lost 2 straight. They're on a 4-game winning streak to me. So right now, this is the hottest team we have in the Metropolitan, the Eastern Conference. They have a fantastic chance right now to jump their way up into first. Still, obviously, early in the season, but you're now seeing that flashes that you expect out of a team playing in New York. And to me, they're finding that rhythm. They're finding that groove. They should be a heavier favorite tonight. But the Sharks also on a 3-game win streak. You see the way they're playing, and they've been doing some good games in the recent weeks. And 6-4 in that last 10. They have allowed just 3 goals in their last 3 games and 4 goals in their last 4, and they've been putting up a ton of points of their own. They have 13 in their last 4. So these two teams, they feel very similar coming into this one. Obviously, the win totals are pretty similar. The overtimes is really where you've seen the separation between the two. 3 overtime losses for the Rangers, and just one of those for the San Jose Sharks. So a lot of separation when it comes to what they've done in overtime. And if it goes to overtime, you probably have to take the Rangers here, just with a little bit more experience in that part of it. But regular time here, I think the San Jose Sharks might be a little bit of a favorite, just based on the fact that most of their games have been decided in regular time, and the Rangers have been pushed a little bit deeper in some of their bigger games. Yeah,
and you mentioned the defense of the Rangers. It could play into their hands. This could be another game that works in their hands on the defensive side, because I'm looking back at the Sharks' schedule. They had that 6-3 win over the Senators, but the last week or so they haven't been putting up a huge amount of goals. So if the Rangers can stop that with the defense that we just talked about that they have, that's going to work in their favor tonight on the road.
Guys like Artemi Panarin on this Rangers team, the guy they signed from Columbus, coming and leading this team in points, and then Chris Kreider with 16 goals so far. I think these guys are going to be very kind of detrimental to this game a little bit, as well as Adam Fox, 18 assists so far this season. And, like they said, I mean, they're second in the Metropolitan Division. They're kind of a sneaky team. Like last year, it was like, oh, the Rangers, they're back and forth. Now this year, they're really cementing themselves. They got a couple key players like Panarin that they signed. And, I like the way they're playing right now. And, we'll just have to see more from them as the season progresses. We're getting near that quarter part of the season a little bit. It's not
you're about
yet.
There, a little over.
We're getting there. So we're going to start seeing teams grind games out, and we're going to start seeing hard hockey, hit physical hockey because games are going to become more important. So win games now while it's not that important. So that's all I got.
Yeah, definitely here. And why don't we go ahead and make picks as, we're getting near that halfway point of the season, as Matt was alluding to here with the NHL on a 56-game season. What do you guys think is going to happen here tonight? Pardon me, 82-game season. 56 was what they did last year.
So I'm going to be quick. I think I kind of gave my pick away when I was breaking that from what I noticed from these two teams over the last 2 weeks. I got to go Rangers. I think I said they were on the road, but this game's at home tonight. Sorry. But
they're home.
Yeah, I like they're 14-4 and they're playing good. They're actually playing good hockey overall, but I like the way their defense is playing. And like I said, the last few games for the Sharks, I know they had that one game a week or two ago that they exploded for, but I just don't think that's going to be. They're going to be able to put it in the net enough tonight to beat the Rangers on the road. So I'm going to go Rangers.
Yeah, I got to go Rangers here too. I think that they have a solid team. The record shows it. But, San Jose Sharks 13-9. Well, they got to get guys like, Timo Meier get going. He leads the team in every section, so he's got to get going to hopefully upset this team tonight, because that's what it would be if they beat them, because the Rangers are rolling.
Yeah, man, I think you do kind of feel that upset. But I think the one thing you have to look at is, the individual divisions, what they've been doing. You see this Pacific Division, they've been on a hot streak. They have just 3 teams that are on losing streak. And when you compare that to what the Metropolitan Division is that I just ran down, there's clearly a problem going on in this metropolitan area. And they haven't been able to find any teams with any success in these last, 8 games here. So I think one thing, the Rangers could end up joining that squad tonight of losing streaks, and that 8-2 record in their last 10 games is great, but they have to avoid getting overexcited on having the best win streak right now in the Metro. So to me, they have to be careful. But as I always say when I look at these games, what is the scoring differential like? Rangers 64 points for, 55 goals against, 9-point differential there. You look at the Sharks, 62 goals for, 61 against. So they've been very even on the season total. But as I said, both teams in these last 3 games, they've really started separating that. I like to see the Sharks come out big in this game. I'm expecting a high scoring affair. Defense takes the backseat this time. But when I say, this will be an offensive showdown, to me, I think that favors this Ranger squad a little bit more. I think they got a little bit more excitement, a little bit more athleticism. So I'm going to take the Rangers here too.
And I know these teams are used to it, but the Sharks got to travel all the way across the country too to play this.
Right.
One. So that's a challenge.
All right, Matt's going to take a quick step aside here as we go ahead and take a look ahead into the NFL this weekend. And since we got plenty of time to go over, we should be able to at least get into every game, not having a rapid fire this time around like we normally do. So, Mike, let's start this one with one of the crappiest games of the weekend. The New York Giants taking on the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, and this is a Dolphins team I was not necessarily high on, but you guys know I picked a lot to start the season in some of the games. They let me down, but they're starting to play some better football. And the Giants, they're 4-7. They don't really have anything on offense.
5-7 now, Mike.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, they don't really, I don't think they have, I'm not saying this Dolphins team is great, but I don't think they have enough to keep up in this game. I think the Dolphins, and they are still in the hunt for a playoff spot too. They're 5-7. We talked about the Saints being 5-7. They can have a chance to get in. Dolphins are 4-7, so I think they think this is a very winnable game at home. They should win this one at home, and I think they're going to win at home.
All right, well, there's your pick right away. So, and Mike, I think I got to go with you a little bit on this side here with the Dolphins. One, I don't like the Giants. I don't really think I've seen anything out of them to make me want to like them this season. they really kind of suck every single time they touch the football field, and you see it. 27th worst in the NFL in their offense, 21st in the defense, though, which I think is a little surprising. They've played decently in that area. Their passing attack is 20th rated, rushing, though, 26th. Everything about them just screams we want to lose football games, and I think that reflects their record a little bit, 4-7, and obviously the Dolphins are just 5-7, so there really isn't much that seemingly separates these two. But when you go into the Dolphins side, their offensive rating, they've actually been pretty fantastic when it comes to throwing the football. They rank 12th right now in the National Football League. Their rushing attack, which I think we kind of knew was going to be a big problem, but they did pick up Phillip Lindsay, who I thought was a great acquisition, and he had a big part of that win last week that propelled them to 5-7. I think he's going to help improve that, and obviously they're not going to see that big jump in the rankings this late in the season, but I think they're going to improve a lot more than that ranking is going to show. So I think their offense goes from being 21st in the NFL, probably jumping up there into the 16th, 17th region, which to me is going to put them about 10 spots ahead of this New York Giants squad. Their defense obviously needs some big, changes, and they obviously, have some defensive issues there, a lot of defensive injuries. I think they're missing their best defensive back. So to me, that's their biggest struggle. But going up against a squad led by, Daniel Jones as their quarterback, he can run it a little bit decently. We obviously saw his big run just last year, and he can throw it decently, but I just don't see him having the wide receivers to really pull apart from this game. I think it ends up being a close one. I think it goes a little bit, tighter than people expect, but I think once we get down to the final stretch, I think you see this Dolphin squad really show that they are a more complete team offensively, and they find a way to win this football game. So I'm going to take the Dolphins here too. Matt, now that you're back in, why don't you unmute your microphone and rejoin the call?
Yeah, I mean, I got to go Dolphins here, too. They have definitely been picking up the second part of the season, and the Giants really showing nothing at all. I mean, nothing. There's nothing to show for. Daniel Jones is not doing good. Saquon Barkley's not doing good. They have young receivers, but I think they have some learning, so they're not really performing. And, Sterling Shepard, I think he's still out, isn't he? I don't know. But even with them, I don't know. They're just declining. They have to do something to figure out how to fix the Giants, because this is not how the Giants should be performing. This is like one of your NFL top, teams here. Like, hey, the Giants should be in it every year, Yeah, it's kind of like the Cowboys too. I mean, the Cowboys finally bouncing back a little bit, but over the years they haven't done anything. Cowboys are supposed to be winning Super Bowls and stuff. Same thing with the Giants, and you're just not seeing anything with it at all. So,
and Alek, I know you kind of touched on this, but that's a big difference in this game for me right now. Tua is not, I know he's inconsistent, but it comes down to the quarterback play right now, because last 2 weeks he's been playing way better than Daniel Jones, and I think that's what they're going to get in this game on Sunday. That's what it comes down to, because you said, I mean, Daniel Jones can maybe break through for some runs, maybe hit some deep balls, but that's about it, and that's the difference right there to me, is the way the quarterback's been playing.
Yeah, that's for sure. And before we move on, questions being asked in the chat. Are they having Power Hour today? No, Power Hour has been canceled for today only. They will return next week. Casual Sports Podcast will be taking over the next hour here on the YSN network. As you can see down below, we're extended until 4 p.m. No Power Hour today. So for those of you looking for Power Hour, why don't you stick around, see if you like what's going on here on the Casual Sports Podcast as we continue to preview the NFL second game on this weekend. We got the Indianapolis Colts versus the Houston Texans. This one, fairly, easy analysis, right? Fourth best offense with the Colts. They have the third best rushing game in the NFL, led none other than Jonathan Taylor. He has been fantastic on the season, one of the top running backs in the league, and he's really cemented himself as one of those franchise backs that you can depend on, and we hope he has a nice career ahead of him. Obviously, those Big Ten backs, they love to show up big for years to come. And, this passing attack, it needs to improve a little bit, but Carson Wentz has really shown out in these last few weeks. The biggest problem right now for them, and what has stuck them to a 500 record of just 6-6, is that defense. They rank 28th right now in the National Football League. And, yeah, they've had a difficult schedule, but they got an easy one to finish out the year. To me, this is one of those must-win games for them. They need to get this one. They have a decent chance of being able to make it to the postseason. That starts with a win here. A loss probably at least ends most of the chances of getting a first place bid for them, but I don't think they're completely out of the runnings. They just need to find something on defense here to really propel them, and I think this is a big game for them to do that because they're going up against the worst offense in the NFL. Indiana, a 9-point favorite coming into this one, over under a 46. I'd probably take the under just because I don't think there's anything coming out of this Houston Texans squad in terms of running or throwing. They have the 31st ranked offense, the 32nd ranked in rushing, 31st in passing there, and their defense not much better, just 25th ranked. They've won just twice. It is clearly a down year for them, and they're going to be looking to take someone big in the draft, and we're going to have to find out what happens with Deshaun Watson in the offseason. So I think a lot of issues going on right now for the Texans. I don't think this is a very winnable game for them, and as I've said in recent weeks, I've been very impressed with this Indianapolis Colts team, the way they've rebounded here in this second half of the season. So I'm going to go right ahead and make my pick. I'm taking the Colts.
Yeah, and I agree with, Jonathan Taylor didn't have his best game in their last game against Tampa Bay, at least compared to what he did against the Bills. But this is definitely the game that he can get back on track on because, the Texans aren't really good at anything. It comes down to offense. They don't have anything on offense. This, like I said, this is the game for him to get back on track with Jonathan Taylor in the running game. So I'm going to give away my pick here. I'm going Colts. I think in Carson Wentz, we talked about their slow start. Alek, you brought that up. Since they got on this run here and started winning some games, he's been looking better. I know last week he had a couple mistakes in that Tampa Bay game, but he's starting to play better. Inconsistency with him is going to hurt them a little bit, but I think it's not going to matter in this game because the Texans just aren't good in football right now.
You said it right there. They're not good at all, and that's why Jonathan Taylor is going to run all over their defense. So I'd say 4 or 5 touchdown performance for him.
Jeez.
Colts roll.
You're saying that Alek gets nothing.
Right.
Heck yeah.
4 or 5 touchdowns. Just 4. Give them
Still
4 or
pros
5.
here, though.
4 or 5.
Right. This isn't a college defense that just gets torn apart. I guess they are pretty bad. They could probably use a decent college. Can you imagine just putting – I'd be interested to see what would happen if you put, like, Georgia Bulldogs defense in the NFL just for a game, just curiosity's sake.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right? But put them up against, a team like the Texans. Just see what happens. You ever been just
Jets.
curious about what do you think would really happen if you just put in a college-level defense in Georgia that's, the best we've seen in quite some time up there against an actual NFL team? I think that'd be something interesting maybe for the offseason. Who knows?
Just like that conversation a few years ago in the Browns win list, people were talking about Alabama potentially beating them. I don't think it can't. They're still professionals. They stink, but they're still professionals. It's still a different level.
Exactly. Obviously, all those guys were the very best in college, and they're terrible in the NFL. Clearly, it's definitely very hard to do. But, as we take a look at those divisional standings for the Colts, they are just 2 games back from the Tennessee Titans, and they will have a matchup with them here soon for the end of this. No, actually, no. They will not face them all for the rest of the season. It's just 5 games left in total for this squad. They obviously have the Texans. They got a bye next week. They got the Patriots, the Cardinals, the Raiders, and Jacksonville. So they desperately need this win here against the Texans. They need that win to finish out the season against Jacksonville, and they need that win against the Raiders. The Patriots and the Cardinals for them, probably definitely the 2 hardest games left on the schedule. They've had a great offense. They have a better defense than the Titans. So to me, they probably stand the best chance of overtaking the Titans here at the rest of the season. But if they can't make that postseason push into first place for the South, I think they definitely stand a chance of getting a wild card spot where they sit right now. So they definitely need to start pressing a little bit more, getting down into this race and really make this tight for the Titans coming out late. Because we saw the Bills, get overtaken by the Patriots as well here in the late goings.
Yeah, that's probably the most likely situation for them right now is a wild card spot. But it's always good to have these competitions at the top of the division when you get late in this type of year because it makes teams want to play harder, want to try to earn it more and get better seeding in the playoffs. So it's definitely going to start this weekend with the Colts because, like I said, I don't get the Texans any chance. Right.
Well, the one thing when you look at the Titans squad, the rest of their season, we'll obviously get to the game. They have a bye this weekend, so their game next weekend will be the Jaguars. They probably have 3 games that you can probably wrap up as a guaranteed win. The Jaguars, the Texans, and then most likely I would say the Dolphins, unless they continue to turn around and push back, and maybe I'd flip that one 50-50 on a coin flip type thing. But I guess you could say the 49ers, even though I don't think they have a complete squad, they still are 6-5, so you can't just count them out just yet, and that's a late matchup in the season. December 23rd, it's in Tennessee, so perhaps that could have an effect. Players want to get back to their families for Christmas. But to me, 3 games that they can probably win. They got the Steelers in there as well. So it definitely feels like the Titans have the easiest spot to clinch that South division for the AFC. But I wouldn't count this Colts squad out just yet.
No, I wouldn't at all because, like I said, I think I like that they're playing better football right now. And I mean, the Texans or Titans are a little hurt right now, so we should see how it comes down.
Definitely here. Well, let's move on. Our next game, this one, a team that I feel has really stumped us this season when we've gone to pick them. Any guesses on who I'm talking about?
No.
I'm trying to look.
Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, yeah.
This one should be an easy pick, though, right? Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions. This should be the easiest pick we have all weekend.
You know what? The only thing I have in this game, that's all I'm going to say. Vikings are playing a bad team. It's not on prime time, so they should win.
Right. It's not prime time. That's the important part for the Vikings. It's not on prime time. And granted, they're facing the Lions, so this could never be on prime time unless the Lions were teleported back to, what, the 80s?
I don't even know then. Did they ever get?
Yeah, at one point this was a good football team.
Okay, yeah, Barry Sanders.
No, they were good a few years ago. They played the Cowboys in the playoffs one year.
Okay. Well, shows what
I
I know.
think
I
they're
haven't been
actually
following the NFL for too terribly long here, but, right, this should be our easiest pick. You got this Lions team. They sit in dead last of their division, dead last in the NFL. They have the worst scoring offense in the NFL. They do have the 21st best rushing attack, but they can't throw the football. Their defense has let up a lot of points. It's the 23rd ranked defense in the NFL, and they're going up a squad that ranks top 20 in both passing and rushing. Passing attack, actually, surprisingly, top 10 for the Vikings, but I believe Dalvin Cook is still out, though, for them, so that could be a big hit for them this weekend against the Lions.
There's still a chance for them.
And we've seen Minnesota slip up a lot this season. They've played down to their talent, and then they'll play up to some of the bigger teams they go up against. They really seem just to play about the same as their opponent. So to me, this is a potentially winnable game for Detroit, surprisingly.
I think it is too, because they've been playing good football the last 3 games they played, Steelers, Browns, and the Bears on Thanksgiving. And they've been close games, and I broke down that Bears game on Thanksgiving, or at least what I thought of that game. The strength of this team's their defense, because their offense isn't anything, but their defense is young too. And if without Dalvin Cook, if he ends up not playing, at least keep it close, because we've seen them in these close games. They got to break through one of these games in a close game, so at least keep it close and then go from there.
Right, and that's definitely an indication. I imagine. I don't know if you guys said your picks already, but I imagine it's Vikings across the board.
I'm picking the Vikings.
Yep.
Well, every time we start picking across the board, it doesn't seem to go well for us. So maybe one of us should take the Lions, but I don't think any of us can rationalize.
I picked them too much this year. I'm done with them. I picked them like 3 or 4 times, and I don't know why, but
gave them too many chances. I see. All right. Well, next game up on the slate, Eagles versus the Jets. And I think the most surprising stat looking into this game, the Eagles have the #1 rushing attack in the entire National Football League.
I feel like this
game's very interesting.
It is, and I feel like this game is kind of interesting, I think.
Yeah, 13th best passing attack from the New York Jets. That surprises me. 2 below average defenses and a terrible passing attack on one side versus a terrible rushing attack on the other. 27th in passing on the Eagles, 30th in rushing on the Jets. So there's clearly a very different approach from either one of these squads when it comes to playing football. Both squads obviously under 500. Eagles at 5-7, Jets at 3-8. So I think it's a game neither team really needs, obviously, as they're both trying to maybe look for better positioning for the draft. But on the other hand, the Eagles aren't necessarily out of a wild card spot for the NFC. And especially if we see the Dallas Cowboys slip up at the last half of the season, they're only 8-4. And when you look at, 4 or 5 games left, there's a chance that if Dallas, I'm not saying it will, but if Dallas takes a fall like the Steelers did last year and, could really open up the NFC East for a chance of somebody else to take home that #1 spot.
Yeah,
they're still live in the playoff spot. They got that big win last week. I think it was against Giants. I think it was. Yeah, against the Giants. So they're playing another New York team. I actually kind of like the Jets in this one for some reason. I don't know why. I think the Eagles are starting to play better, but I think they're not quite there yet, and I think they're due for a loss. And I also think, I know the Jets only have 3 wins, but I think they're due for a win. So I'm going to go Jets in this one.
All right. Well, we do just get breaking news here from the New Orleans Saints side. Doctors have determined that quarterback Taysom Hill suffered a mallet finger injury Thursday, will not require surgery. It is not as extensive as the Russell Wilson injury from earlier this year, which is about the same thing, I believe. So he will try to play through the injury for the rest of the season before going into the offseason. So that news does come out. not really surprised that he's going to try and play it out, considering he's got a pretty big contract on the line.
Yeah.
Matt, why don't you go ahead and make your pick, though? Eagles versus Jets.
As much as I want to get Jets here, I'm going to go Eagles here. Like you said, with the rushing attack, I got to go with that. So, Eagles.
Matt, I think I want a similar line here. I like that rushing attack, and clearly I've been very high on this team all season, so it would be silly of me to pick against them in a game like this. So I'm going to say fly, Eagles, fly. I'm taking, Andy Hake, Valley Christian, Eagles head coach. I'm taking the Eagles here. He inspired me this season for football, so I'm rolling with the Eagles.
Yeah.
There you go.
Or Eagle.
Well, this one we get to see Andy Dalton coming back into the spotlight once again after trying to prove himself as the worst quarterback in the NFL last week against Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. They played pretty poorly. They somehow won the football game because they were facing Detroit, obviously. So they're 4-7 on the season. And this one, much as I said the easiest pick should have been against the Lions, this one might actually be easier because it's the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Chicago Bears. Bears do have the 6th best rushing attack and the 7th best defense in the NFL, but passing-wise, 32nd. And that's not a surprise with the quarterback problems they've had, a terrible offensive line, and I really just haven't seen much out of them to really show me they can win this game. Going 3rd best defense on the Cardinals side, 11th in passing, 12th in rushing. This is a total team right now in the Cardinals. They sit potentially as the best team in the NFL, especially in the NFC. So to me, pretty easy pick on this one. Cardinals need to keep winning here. A win might just solidify themselves a playoff spot if they can pull this one off. So I'm going to take Cardinals. I like what they've been doing, even without Kyler Murray. If he is or isn't playing, I'm not sure. Colt McCoy showed he can put up a decent bit of yardage and points in that last performance. I think he had 4 touchdowns thrown. So I don't have any problem saying Colt McCoy can help this team pick up the win. I'm going Cardinals.
And how about the quarterback matchup in this one?
Colt McCoy is still the best quarterback to come out of Texas since he left.
Yeah,
I guess.
Who else?
Not much of a flex, Matt.
There really isn't. Yeah, it's Texas, but I don't know anybody else.
Sam Ellinger.
Exactly. What?
Practice squad Ellinger.
Where did he get drafted?
Oh gosh, Colts.
Colts, that's right.
I think he may have already been cut though. So
I'm looking.
But
Cardinals versus Bears here, Mike.
I'm not going to trick myself. I'm going to go Cardinals. I know they're missing Kyler Murray, but I mean, Colt McCoy's got it done in the last few games that he started. So they still got a lot of talent around him to help him out. So I'm going to go Cardinals.
Cardinals versus Bears.
I'm going Cardinals.
Any analysis on that, or just Cardinals?
You still looking that up, or?
Yeah, I'll give an analysis real quick. But Cardinals, I mean, without Colt McCoy, but they still have their flaming hot receivers, and the rushing game has been pretty good as well. So gotta rely on that.
And rely on defense too.
Yeah.
Talk about good teams. You got to be able to stop people. It's got to rely on defense.
No, he's
too.
not even on the practice squad. I mean, he's on their active roster, it looks like.
Yeah, all right.
So he's on a roster.
Fair enough.
Colt McCoy it is. Best quarterback.
Heck yeah.
Who cares?
He was cool, though.
Just put that one right in the ground, Mike. You just went, Colt McCoy. Man, who cares?
You kind of did too. You kind of did too.
Yeah,
it's not a huge accomplishment from what they've had recently.
No, it's not.
So,
well, we'll see if maybe this younger quarterback they have can turn things around for the quarterback position at Texas. Granted, not a lot of schools can say they've really produced some big quarterback talent to the NFL. It's very hard to make that transition. I mean, especially when a lot of teams will pick the favorite and they come from a big team that's loaded with a fantastic O-line, fantastic wide receivers. It's hard to make that transition. That's why sometimes you see, the smaller quarterbacks from lesser great universities that maybe didn't have the accomplishments actually perform a little bit better than some of the big name folks, especially out of Ohio State, Alabama in the past. Obviously they got a few guys now that have started to shine, and Clemson right now, I mean, Watson, he's good, but we don't know what we're expecting out of Trevor Lawrence now. He seems to not really be fitting the NFL system very well. Maybe that's Urban Meyer. Maybe that's just Jacksonville. Who knows? But, I mean, you see a guy like Josh Allen from Wyoming come out and start slinging it right away. I mean, I think you do see some of these smaller college quarterbacks play a little bit bigger.
Seems to work better that way.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out what's in store for the quarterbacks in this upcoming draft. But let's move on. Another game here. This one, I think, perhaps the most even matchup of the weekend. We got the Los Angeles Chargers, the Cincinnati Bengals. This one Sunday, 1 p.m. offenses, they seem very similar. Passing wise, Bengals are 14th, Chargers are 6th. Rushing wise, 22nd for the Chargers, 20th for the Bengals. But I think I like the running back department that the Bengals have better with Joe Mixon. To me, he's one of the most underrated running backs in the National Football League. He doesn't put up the flashy stats, the flashy plays, but he is a consistent ground and pound running back, and he's going to get you your yards. Defenses, they're just about even. 11th for the Chargers, 10th for the Bengals. These teams really seem just that close to me this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at, these two teams played Pittsburgh the last couple of weeks. Chargers looked like they were going to blow them out. Pittsburgh, they let Pittsburgh sneak back and make it a close game. Pittsburgh almost pulled it off. And then the Bengals just put the gas pedal down and said, hey, you're not coming back against us, and we're going to beat you down, okay? And that's exactly what they did. Now that they're going up against that Chargers team who let Pittsburgh come back. Don't let them have a chance of getting the lead, because they're not going to look back. If the Chargers get in the lead, it's scary, because you could let them. Herbert could have this magnificent first half, which he did against Pittsburgh. He pretty much had a pretty good game, but that first half is like, wow, look what he's doing and stuff. Then you let Pittsburgh crawl back. I know there was a block punt, a couple magical things happen, but he was the main thing. And you got to look at that, and you got to be like, hey, this Bengals team really blew him out. If he gets ahead of him, if he gets ahead of the Bengals, is he going to keep it there, or is he going to let it slip? So,
the thing about this game is you mentioned how they're right next to each other in defensive rankings, and I think if a team goes up big, one of these teams goes up big within second quarter coming out of the halftime, don't think that it's over, because both these teams can show they get back, and the Bengals have one of the better offenses, at least skill group in the league. The receiving core, they have Joe Mixon, who's really starting to play better, and they got Joe Burrow, and the Chargers have weapons too. So
Uzama, love that big tight end.
He's awesome. He's awesome.
But I think if it's a game where a team gets up big, it's going to come down to the end at some point. Whether a team gets up big or whatever, close game, it's going to come down to the end, because teams.
Yeah, I hope so. And keep in mind, both these guys second-year quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Herbert had the big rookie year. Joe Burrow goes down. Now Burrow's having the big second year, and you've seen Herbert struggle a little bit. But hey, man, they do still sit in second place in their division. A win here could, potentially put them over the Chiefs, depending on what happens with the Chiefs this weekend. Although they now have a beat-up Broncos team as well, who's going to be without Melvin Gordon for tonight. So this weekend, probably a pretty safe bet to take the Chiefs in a win there. But I think you look at this game, I got to take the Bengals in it. I like their weapons a little bit better. And I know I've said in the past, I'm not 100% bought into what the Chargers have when it comes to running the football and their ability to move it consistently. So I'm sticking with the teams I've been talking a little bit higher on. I got the Bengals.
Yeah, and Alek, you talked about the division race with the Chargers. How about with the Bengals? If Ravens lose to Pittsburgh and Bengals win, Bengals are in first.
There you go.
So it's divisional.
And they've had a better offense and a better defense this season too than the Ravens.
Yeah.
And Matt, I like how you brought up the divisions too, because these are probably these two teams. Their divisions are probably the best two divisions in football. The Chargers, their division has every team's over 500. Steelers division, they don't have a team under 500. I know the Steelers at 500, but these are two of the most competitive divisions in football. But I think right now it comes down to the running game, and I like the way Joe Mixon's been playing. And
Mixon has been going off. So he's up there in career in the yards, I think, on the season. He's like third or fourth or something like that.
Yeah, and he's been a good back, but he's stepped it up this year for them. And I think that helps out a younger quarterback like Joe Burrow coming off that injury. And I just like the way this Bengals team is playing right now. It's at home. We just saw what they did to the Steelers last week at home. I got to go Bengals in this one.
Bengals, Chargers?
Oh, Matt. Bengals. I thought I picked the Bengals. Bengals.
All right. Well, fair enough. This game probably feels like it should be an easy pick, but I don't know how to feel going into this one. It's the Buccaneers, the Falcons, 8-3 Buccaneers, and you kind of see them, I don't know, seem out of touch recently with the way they've been playing. I don't feel they have that momentum anymore. That last 5 games, they're just 3-2. Out of conference, they've been 3-0, but in conference, they've slipped up against some inferior opponents. And with the NFC South potentially being up for grabs, especially if the Falcons defeat the Buccaneers here, there's a chance Atlanta could actually make a run here, despite them not having the best one. Obviously, Tom Brady has some pretty significant history against this Falcon squad. I think this is a game you at least have to take a look at and say, hey, this isn't, set in stone that this will be a Buccaneers win. It should be, because they have the third best offense, the fifth best defense, and they're going up against the 28th best offense and the 18th best defense. So I think you look there and you see the disparity between the two teams, but I think you've also seen this Buccaneers squad really struggle in these last few weeks.
And they've struggled against average to below average
Right.
teams, which is what the Falcons are in this one. I kind of like how you brought that up, because, I mean, I kind of like the Bucs in this game because of what they did last week. Last week was a good game for them to win, an important one for them to win. They had to grind that one out, and I think that's going to – I don't know if it was a turning point like Bruce Arians said. It shouldn't be, because they're defending champs. They should come out in games like that, but games like this they should win too, and I think they're going to win this one.
Matt?
It's tough. I mean, Falcons have kind of bounced back from that rough start, but, I mean, you got to go with that stat line. Would you say Tampa Bay is what, fifth best in defense and what in offense?
Third.
So, and Falcons are near the bottom still. So, I mean, and Brady over the Falcons, I mean, they had him by that lead twice, even when he was with Tampa Bay, and he still came back and got him.
Right.
So I gotta go Tampa Bay here.
That's a fair enough statement, and I think maybe just to be a little bit different here, take a risky pick. I'm actually going to go with the Falcons. There's something about them these last few weeks that I just feel they have something. I mean, yeah, they're just 2-3 in the last 5 and 2-5 in conference. They've really played bad when they've gone, against in-conference teams, and they have one of the worst net point ratings in the NFL, minus 103. That's actually the second worst in the National Football League, behind only the Detroit Lions. But I don't know. There's something going into this. Actually, that's not even they're about 4th or 5th worst. Actually, that was just in the NFC side of things. So I don't know. There's something about this squad here tonight. This Sunday, I got a feeling. I'm taking the Falcons, just based on a feeling.
Alek, and I don't feel like you're wrong by picking that, because there's been times this year. You guys know some of these weeks I've been betting. I bet the Bucs in the games I know they should win, and they really haven't.
Games.
So they against subpar teams like the Falcons are right now, they struggled. They saw them against Washington, some other teams so far this year, and I mean they've won some of them, but they lose to a team like Washington. And this game's on the road too, so the Falcons at least have that advantage of being at home.
Right. All right. Well, next game up on the slate, the pretty terrible Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the LA Rams. I'm going to make a quick pick on this one. Get us into some other stuff potentially to finish out the show. I'm going to take the Rams here.
I'm going to go Rams. This is a good game for them to get their offense back on track, which it has looked pretty bad the last few weeks. So I like them in this game. I don't think it's going to be close.
Rams.
Yeah. And for those of you tuning in once again, looking for Power Hour, that one has been canceled for today. Casual Sports Podcast extended until 4 p.m. We still got a long ways to go, half an hour left. We got 4 more NFL games to get into before we get to our highlights of the week and, of course, our very special weekly award here on the podcast. Washington football team versus the Raiders this week, and I actually really like this matchup. Got the Washington football team. They're 5-6. Out of conference, though, they've been 0-4. So I think you match them up here against the AFC this week. I don't think that favors them, but you've also seen the Raiders not necessarily been great either, just 2-2 out of conference. They've struggled in these last 5 games. The net point, sits at -36 for them. And other side of this, Washington, they're -53. So neither squad to me really seems like, hey, I have a clear advantage coming into this one when it comes to playing offensively or playing defensively. The one thing for me is you've seen since all the stuff came out with the Raiders, losing Gruden, Ruggs with the whole incident there. Things have really been going downhill for them, and I just think it's reached that point in the season where it's kind of culminated in what we have now, and it feels like this season feels pretty much over, even though they're only a game back technically from the Kansas City Chiefs. I think there's too much going on right now for the Raiders, and I think that's really added up into what we've seen in these last few weeks. And good on them for having a winning record through all of this, but I'm going to have to give this one to Washington. I like them a little bit better. I know this is in Las Vegas, and they should rally around that, but I don't know. I like Washington better.
Yeah, I agree with you. It might be actually starting to catch up with them with getting through all this drama. They've been good dealing with all of it, but I'm gonna try to be positive here with them. They got Washington this week that we're talking about. Their schedule's not that difficult to finish out. They have to go to the Chiefs, but then they have to play the Browns, who are struggling. We'll see if they can turn things around in 2 weeks. Then they got to play the Broncos, the Colts, and the Chargers. So it is a little challenging for them, but that's why I think they need to get this one this weekend, and I think they're going to get it because, yeah, we could say what you want in that Cowboys game. The Cowboys didn't do some things, but the Raiders won that game, and I think they have something that they still have been able to ride on throughout all this controversy and against some of these tough teams. And Washington, we talk about them, but they still are a tough team. But I think this is the one the Raiders have to get home, and I think they're going to.
I'm going to go Raiders here too. I do like what Washington has done here, but Raiders, like you said, I mean, they won that game against Dallas. A lot of people counted them out because of all the stuff that has happened. But I think, honestly, Deshaun Jackson is balling right now. He's had to come back a couple of times to catch their curve balls, but he's still scoring. The guy can still show his speed once he gets into the open. So I think they got to ride on him a little bit. What's his Kenyon Drake, the running back? I think he's got to get. I mean, I think he has more weight on his shoulders because Josh Jacobs is this. I mean, the guy's becoming a bust, honestly, and I think he needs a.
He's just underperformed, Matt. Don't you throw that term around too much.
I do, but
not a bust. He performed. He had 3 good seasons here in the NFL. I mean, he was statistically near the top in all 3 of them, and he's having a down year. And you see that in the 4th season of a running back. Their careers aren't that long at the top. Don't be throwing around bust for Josh Jacobs.
All right, underperforming. I think it's still time for him to bounce back here. But I think whatever is going on, he just needs to clear this out of the way and be like, "Hey, I need to start running the ball hard, okay?" And we may see that. It may come out of nowhere. So maybe that will happen this week, maybe not. But I feel like it's going to happen. So I gotta go Raiders here.
And we got a 1-point spread in this game too, Alex. So it's they're thinking it's gonna be the closest one.
Well, next game up here, Matt. I'm gonna let you take center screen on this one. Your squad, Ravens versus the Steelers. I'll let you get into your rivalry. I'm going to step aside real quick and come right back on. But you guys take the forefront of this discussion. I'll be right back. Ravens versus Steelers.
I'm leaving it to Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
Big Ben. Stephen A. Smith was talking about it. And, I don't listen to Stephen A. too much. Usually all the stuff I see on Instagram, I just keep swiping. But I saw Pittsburgh and I saw Stephen A. Smith, and he didn't start out yelling and screaming. He just said what needs to be done. And, it's time, Big Ben. You have nothing left. You don't. You think you have more in the tank, but you really don't, okay? A lot of quarterbacks think they have more in the tank, and they don't. It's time for Mike Tomlin to be like, hey, do you have came to bat for us for the past, since 2004, he has reformed he's made Pittsburgh, but his time is over. I say either, take him out, put Rudolph, or, I still think they should give Haskins a shot here. I really do. If that means tanking the rest of the season and figuring some stuff out, oh well. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season, so you can at least kind of go and say, hey, he only had one. So, wow, you're back.
Yep.
Matt, let me help you out.
Had some behind-the-scenes stuff we had to take care of here, but all figured out.
Matt, let me say something about the quarterback situation.
Go ahead.
I agree with you. Ben probably doesn't need to step aside, but do you really think Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins is that better of an option?
No. But
so you might as well leave Ben in then.
But,
and that's on the Steelers too, because they have not done, not just this past offseason, but the last couple of off seasons, they have not put themselves in position to get a quarterback behind him. Where if stuff like this happens, where he needs to sit down, there's nobody really else better to put in over him.
I think he's going to get hurt way worse, and it's going to be pretty bad. He's going to get hurt. He's already hurt. His hips are old. His shoulders are going. The guy's almost 40 years old. He has arthritis everywhere, and he had that big comeback season last year from that huge injury. I mean, he missed the whole season. What
Matt, I think a lot of people are going to really hate you if you keep calling 38-year-olds old.
I mean, he's old.
Well, in the sports world,
There's a lot of
sport.
yeah.
It is sports world. You just keep throwing him around like, oh, he's got arthritis everywhere. He's an old man. I think you're going to get a lot of our fans a little bit feel a little bit older.
Listen.
We got a lot of parents that tune into these shows, to hear about their kids and stuff. And
this is
a little bit of a younger
against the
audience
parents.
here, but still. We got
These
parents
are
up there in like
athletes.
40s, 50s, they're gonna feel like, oh man, he's calling us like grandpas.
We're talking
Listen,
the
He's
sports.
gonna think we're in a wheelchair and a walker here.
Listen now, this isn't against any of those people, okay? These are guys that have been playing sports. He's been getting hit. It's injury after injury over a course of 20 years, almost 20 years. He's been playing since 2004. They deal with injury part. Baker Mayfield's dealing with it. He probably already has arthritis, and he's young. All right, so it's more common to have arthritis when you play sports like that, or
somebody needs to tell Tom Brady he's a grandpa. So, he's still balling out like he's 28.
Doing. I don't know what he is doing. He has like Mr. Miyagi come in daily and do that thing on his shoulder or something. I don't know. Yeah,
getting him right.
Something.
Yeah, I think when Tom Brady retires, or when he eventually passes away in 200 years, that he's gonna have to donate his body to science so someone can figure out how he lasted so long.
They'll take. I mean,
at this point, he's gonna end up being the oldest living man somehow. I don't know what he does, what his routine is. That man is
doesn't even look 43.
A freak of nature.
He looks great.
He doesn't even look his age at all.
He's got he's got to be using like Touch of Grey or something over there. There's no way.
Probably.
he's dyeing that hair. No way he's this old and taking this many hits and he ain't fully gray.
I mean,
you see guys like Adam Vinatieri when he was hitting this age in the NFL.
Gray beards, gray everything.
Man, looking like he was 65 years old with, a 20-year-old's body, and you got Tom Brady out here looking like he's 28.
Still nailing 40-yard kicks.
He's an exception. But going back to Pittsburgh here, you even got Ryan Clark, the former leader of the Steelers defense, pretty much come out and saying time is up. Just sit down. There's going to be no right off to the sunset type of thing at all, unless, Mr. Miyagi comes and visits him. But, it's about done. It's about time. It should have been last year when he had that surreal moment. Honestly, they got beat by the Browns, but I thought that was a real surreal moment with him and Marquise Pouncey just sitting on the bench. Like, hey, I think it's time. It would have been better if they both would have went out. Like, hey, it's time. Let's just go together. That would have been more surreal.
I don't think he could. I don't think he wanted to go out with his final game being a loss to the Browns.
But Matt,
that's a team he dominated his entire career. I don't think he could have gone out like that. And Matt, here's the thing when it comes to that. This is a team that clearly has enough issues going on around it that isn't just Big Ben. That they can afford to sit this season aside and let Big Ben, do his final goodbye. It's his farewell tour. You see it all the time in the NBA and NASCAR. You get your farewell tour, and he had his last good season last year. That was probably the real cap to his career. This season, this is his goodbye, and I think this was a season that the Steelers could afford to do that because they have some younger guys, they have a new line, some younger wide receivers. They're trying to find an identity for this squad that isn't just T.J. Watt on defense. So I think to your point with putting him out, I know we've kind of all said it at some point this season with, oh, come on, we got to get this guy out of there, get somebody new. They've clearly shown that they were going to let him stay as long as he wanted. He's done enough for the city and for the team that he clearly has the trust of the owners and the organization to say when he's done, and they've let him make that decision, and they haven't made him for him. I respect him for doing that. It's what a lot of teams decide to do for their superstar. They go, you know what, you've done everything. We'll take 2-3 years of some bad play to let you finish it out and get your final glory moments, your final goodbyes everywhere, and your ovations from your home crowd as many times as they'll give it to you. So to me, they have enough issues going around Big Ben that they can afford to let him take this season and just ride off to the sunset.
Okay.
Metaphorically speaking, it'll be a bad season. Maybe he's riding off into the moonlight, but either way, he's forever a Steelers legend, and they're letting him say his final goodbyes. I think this season we definitely see him needing to say goodbye, whether that's his choice or not. I think it's going to have to be Tomlin who sits down with him and go, man, we've had a great ride, but it's time. It's going to be the hardest decision. It's going to be the hardest thing that Tomlin will ever have to do in his career here, besides finding the replacement to Big Ben. So to me, this is going to test how good Tomlin is. And I think you kind of had that same question mark for Belichick a little bit after Tom Brady left. Who was he going to be? Was he still going to be regarded as the greatest coach in the NFL without his superstar? And I think you can kind of see, you know what, he might just be. And I think this is where you're going to get the same thing with Tomlin. He's had that winning record with Tom Brady every season. He had the one year where they went 8-8. And I think you finish out this one and you come across maybe a losing season, maybe not. But it's going to bring up the question mark, what can Tomlin do without Big Ben? And I think that's where you bring in what's next for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What can they do now in a division that isn't just, one other team in the Ravens? It's not the Browns and the Bengals, scraping the bottom of the barrel for 5 years and having one good season. Now you have a competitive league where it's seemingly every team can win it on any given night. So a lot of question marks coming up. But how about this game? Ravens, Steelers. Matt, obviously I think we know you're taking the Steelers here. What about you, Mike?
So, Matt, I'm not a Steeler fan, but I root for them, and I love Pittsburgh. But
yep,
you brought up the Ryan Clark thing. He's been pretty critical of him this week, but I saw him on First Take today, and something caught my attention.
What did he say?
If this game is somewhat close in the third quarter, they're going to start playing Renegade on the scoreboard, and Heinz Field's going to go nuts. I like the Steelers in this game. I do.
Me too. And Lamar Jackson against the Steelers defense, and TJ should be coming back, and that's my hope. Please just come back, because this defense has looked depleted without him. And when you got a pretty bad offense like we do, I wouldn't really put as much energy in the defense either. Like, wow, we're coming out here, we're busting our tail every session, and they come out and 3 and out, and we have to come out every 2-3 minutes, and they get exhausted. We saw Cameron Hayward, what he was doing a couple weeks ago with the Chargers. He was out of gas completely.
About the second half, right? Yeah. He was exhausted.
And he was
Matt, you're taking the Steelers here. I'm going to go the other way with this one. I got the Ravens. Someone's got to pick, the favorites. First place in the North. Offensively, they've been better than this Steelers squad. They haven't been great, but, I like what I'm seeing a little bit more out of them. They got 40 points more scored on the season, and we've talked about the struggles of the offense of the Steelers, obviously plenty, and defense has actually scored, allowed less points. They're on a 2-game win streak. Steelers 2-game losing streak. As much as I want to see Tomlin keep that, streak intact of never having a losing season, he's still got time to do that. Ravens need the win desperately here to avoid falling behind the Bengals. I think Lamar Jackson has a good game here tonight, and I got the Ravens on Sunday.
Matt, one more thing though. I know Steelers been playing bad, but all I'm going to say is they've been playing bad on the road. They're coming back home. Fans might be frustrated, but Pittsburgh fans are going to bring it in this game. So that's why if it's a close game, I like them.
Second of all, here, this is one of the toughest schedules that any NFL team has, and we have one of the toughest remaining schedules too. So
I think you guys are third or fourth, right? And Browns are in first right now, and I think the Ravens are in fifth.
Schedule. So
I think the Bengals are also in that top 5, all 4. Well, really, it's because they all have to go up against each other.
Ravens are up there too. So
that's what I said. Well, next game up on the slate here, 49ers versus Seahawks. To me, I know these teams sit pretty neck and neck in the NFC West right now. I mean, 6-5 Niners, 3-8 Seahawks in terms of, third and fourth place in the West. But I just feel like the Seahawks have had so many problems this season, and obviously that resolves around Russell Wilson. If he can come back and have a big game, I think they can win it. But with the 49ers seemingly finding a rhythm, 3 straight wins here in the NFC, I think I'm giving the advantage to the 49ers. They seem to be pulling something together here late in the season, and this is clearly a team that we know can perform at an excellent level. They have a decent offense, a decent defense. I'm going to give them the edge here tonight. They've been good on the road so far this season, and they're playing in Seattle, so I'm giving it to the 49ers.
I'm going to go San Fran, too. I like the way they've been playing the last few weeks and winning the 3 straight. And I think their offense is starting to look back to what it should be. They're getting guys healthy. They're starting to use Debo the way they should use him. And they're starting to run the ball better and mix in some other stuff on offense. Their defense is starting to step up, too. I mean, the last game they gave up 26, but before that they gave up 10 points, 20-something, I think. So they're starting to look like a better team. And I think they're a team that can make the playoffs, too. But in terms of this game, I like them over the Seahawks.
All right, Matt?
Yeah, Seahawks are, one of those depleted teams out there as well. And, I mean, like you said, the Niners are rising. I like what they're doing with Deebo Samuel. I think he's going to be one of their top receivers here. I mean, if he's not already. So, yeah, you got to keep going with that. So, 49ers.
All right, well, one final game on the slate, and it seems to be another simple pick, hypothetically, because it's the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're taking on the Denver Broncos, and Broncos without Melvin Gordon, so that's going to be a big hit to their running game, and obviously, they are coming into this one, I believe coming off a win last week. A win last week. They're 3-3 at home. I don't know if I see this turning into a good game for them, especially since they're on the road, and they've been 3-2 on the road. So technically, a winning record, and they have a phenomenal defense, but they have a really poor offense, and that's been the big thing. And a win here can actually elevate them up to first in the AFC West potentially, depending on what happens, elsewhere with the Raiders and the Chargers. So to me, they stand a chance still on the season if they can find anything with their offense. I just have a lot of question marks there with that side of it. And they played good last week. You saw some nice things out of them. But Bridgewater was just 11 of 18 with a touchdown. Drew Lock couldn't do anything. They brought him in, and they relied on the ground game to pick up that big win. I don't think they have the ground game this week without Gordon. So I'm going to give my game here to the Chiefs.
I'm going to go Chiefs because I've been talking them up. I know that the slow start, I said they're going to get on a roll. I'm going to stand by that. So I'm going to go Chiefs. And I like pretty much everything what you just said, Alec. But, you made some of your other pictures that I'm going to roll with some of the teams you were hyping up. I've been hyping up the Chiefs. So I'm rolling with them.
Fair enough. Matt?
I'm going to go Broncos here just to be different. They have a pretty good defense. We'll see what they can do to disrupt Patrick Mahomes. If you disrupt him, it kind of messes the whole thing up. So we've seen some teams do that early. They have bounced back. So we'll just have to see what this Broncos defense can do. So I got to go with them.
All right, wonderful. Well, guys, we pretty much made it to 2 hours. Let's get down to our final 10 minutes, our traditional finish here to the podcast. We finally didn't have to run through the ending, but let's get down to highlights of the past week. Mine comes in pretty simple. There was one big highlight for me this week. It was Ohio State upsetting number 1 Duke. It was one of the biggest moments of the sports world besides what happened to the Buckeyes on Saturday. So to me, Ohio State upset number 1 Duke. 9th time they've taken down the number 1 team, and last time they beat number one Duke, it came off of a loss to Michigan in 2011. The following Tuesday, they beat number 1 Duke. They do it again. To me, history rewrote itself. It was epic to see. I mean, and how you're seeing the Buckeyes finding a rhythm coming off of it, and I'm loving it right now. Ohio State, they got a chance to make a nice run in the Big Ten. I hope they can do it. So that's my highlight. Let's go on here to Matt. Your one. Cavs win in Miami, first time in 10 years. Talk a little bit about your highlight there.
Yeah, for January 25th, 2010, Shaq had 19 points in that game. LeBron went off too. So
did Shaq have those points for Miami or Cleveland in that year?
Oh, Cavs.
Cleveland.
Okay.
He was on the Cavs. Yeah. But they finally came through the other night, and man, they put up a performance, right? Mike, Darius Garland, you and me were watching this game on TV. Darius Garland went off. He hit that huge three at the end of the third quarter to kind of say, hey, we're not losing. We're not losing this game. I really like that everybody's back and they're healthy. They're coming back. They got a big game tonight as well. So we'll just have to see what this season holds. I mean,
if we have a little bit extra time, but we'll go back to the Cavs here at the end of the show if we have some more time and get them in a little bit. We still got 8 minutes to go, so we can potentially take a look back and see the Cavs here in a minute. But Mike, you also got a Cleveland Cavaliers highlight of the week. Here's yours. Evan Mobley named Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month. Talk a little bit about that.
I mean, to me, it was pretty obvious picking him for Rookie of the Month because, I mean, he's averaging 14.5 points a game, 2.6 rebounds. And he has at least like 2 or 3 blocks a game. And the games that he missed to when he had that sprained elbow were 4 games. They lost all of them. And look how much better they're playing with him back now. It's to me, he means a lot to this team along with Jared Allen down low and combine that in the backcourt with Darius Garland. So I think it was it was a good month for him. And it was a good month overall for the Cavs.
Yeah. Gotta like what they're doing right now. I think the biggest thing look at where this team has struggled in recent years, and it was the offensive side that has really completely fixed itself. And I know a lot of people were criticizing the move to getting a bunch of big men in the offseason, but it's culminated now in the third best defensive rating in the NBA this season. So I think as much as people want to criticize the offseason, this was the proper move for the Cavs, bringing in a big and Mobley. I know some other people wanted them to, go for Cade Cunningham or Jalen Suggs, and I honestly think Evan Mobley was the best decision. He might end up being the best guy in this draft. And to me, he's got a strong case for Rookie of the Year already. It's going to come down to how these guys perform in the last, 3 quarters of the season.
Yep.
Well, that does it for our highlights of the week. Let's get into our final segment here of the week. This week's Meathead of the Week.
All right. This is a long time coming here, and I'm watching a clip right now. This is absurd. The referees in general, right there, it says NFL, college basketball, NBA, college football. They're horrible. I'm watching one right now. This is now a blindside block. Last night, the Saints.
Oh, yeah.
That is horrible. That's a blindside block now. Okay.
Right, and this was just a defensive edge rusher coming straight at Taysom Hill. Mike, this is one of your Cowboys players coming straight for Taysom Hill, and to me, it was a regular block. Just a left tackle pushing down a defensive end, and he's coming around the corner, and they called it a blindside block. And that's just one of, I think, at least 10 examples you could have pulled from football in this past 7 days. And whether I obviously said my own complaints against the refs in the Ohio State game. Ohio State still lost that. I'm not taking the win away from Michigan. They played better. They outperformed Ohio State, but there were some terrible reffing in that game. I mean, you even look at the Alabama game. We talked about that. The referees that were pretty poor there, and that was just in college football too. That came to mind immediately. And it's really been an all-season type thing, hasn't it? I mean, we've been talking about how bad the referees are in our own personal group chat these last 10 weeks of sports, and we've had quite a few complaints of our own here on the show, and I know it's really been trending around Twitter as well, and the social media verse, and I think they just deserve this award at least once this season for really having a quite terrible officiating job. And obviously it's one of the hardest jobs to have in sports, and we're not trying to take that away, but when you're at the highest of the levels, you kind of expect a little bit better than I think what we've been getting, and that's really what we're alluding to here. Right.
I just think
high school, and obviously they're part-time refs, but at the same time, if that's the reason we're giving, then it's up to the leagues to make these guys full-time and give them a reason to want to perform better.
And like you said, I picked 1 out of 10 examples. Another one last night, the Knicks and Bulls game with Taj Gibson. Come on, man. What was that? That was, and then you can even go to the Alabama Auburn game.
Yeah, I mentioned that one a minute ago.
Missed calls. I mean, I've been going off about this.
There's been a lot of missed holding calls this season, especially with some of the big names off of defensive lines in college. I know Will Anderson, Jordan Davis, Haskell Garrett, they've all been held severely, and even Hutchinson has been held a lot. I mean, there's been a lot of missed calls this year, and some of the calls that you are getting are like, well, you're calling the least egregious of all of them, and, whether it's pass interference as well this season, that it's just, sometimes the refs are blind, and sometimes they're calling it for, blowing on a dude the wrong way. And I think the inconsistencies is really what we're alluding to with the referees, and why they're the biggest meatheads is because they can't seem to make up their minds on what a penalty is anymore.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Inconsistencies. That's the best way to put it, because
they're horrible.
I mean, they're trying to eliminate things, and then when they have one call, they don't call it. Same exact thing happens in a different game. They call it, so it's inconsistent. It's frustrating when you're watching it, especially when it's your team.
We did have an honorable mention, but we seem to give it to him a lot. I mean, we have Antonio Brown. Come on, why do you got to lie in your COVID test, man?
You know what the thing is, and especially when the NFL isn't even required the players to get vaccinated. So what'd you have to fake a card for? Just get the testing then.
Right. And I think the big thing about it is just that becomes a federal offense for faking one of those. So now he can find himself in, worse legal trouble. And now you're in a worse situation than you would have been if you just went, no, I wasn't. But, a little bit about that. Some people may consider it a little political. So we're not going to go too much into it.
No, we're not going to go too much into it.
Get people all upset about a whole lot of nothing that's going to result in absolutely nothing. So, this has been the Casual Sports Podcast, taking over Power Hour's time for the day. Boys, we made it an hour and 57 and a half minutes right now as we look to tune out the show. Any final thought before we hit the weekend?
No.
Another good week. Another good week.
Have a good weekend. That's the message.
I mean, another
Yeah,
good
have a
week.
good
We got
weekend.
conference championships. There's a lot of
Right.
sports going on this weekend.
A lot of
We got
sports.
our,
You won't find yourself missing out on anything today.
no, we got our Cavs tonight. We got the conference championships tomorrow.
High school basketball.
High school
Right. College
basketball,
basketball's
NFL
got a
on
lot
Sunday.
of huge ones too. NHL, obviously, we mention all the time. We don't talk about the NBA and NHL probably as much as we will in the next few months here. Once football hits the wind down, as we're already seeing in college, we're gonna let the NBA and NHL potentially take over those spots on Wednesdays and Thursdays there, along with maybe a little bit more college basketball. Let us know what you guys want. You can interact with us on Twitter as well. Not on, when we're not on the show at Casual Sports Wrap. So. Once again, we thank you all for tuning in, especially to the long 2-hour edition. If you're watching this after, thanks for sticking it all the way through. It's been quite the ride here today. If you want to see more of us, you can see Matt and I tonight calling our respective basketball games here in just about 3 hours.
Yep.
I'll be at Cardinal Mooney. He'll be up at Badger. Should be some fun games on tonight, and hopefully some more YSN teams winning big. But that will do it here. I'm Alek Koberna. That's Matt Morrison and Mike Wolfgang to the far side of me. Thank you all for tuning into this long one. We will see you all next time.